戦争は変わった。一つの時代が終わり、俺たちの戦争は終わった。
War has changed. It's no longer about nations, ideologies, or ethnicity. It's an endless series of proxy battles fought by mercenaries and machines. War and its consumption of life has become a well-oiled machine. War has changed. Verified soldiers carry algorithmic arms, manipulate social influence, AI enhance and regulate their timelines. Memetic control, information control, emotion control, battlefield control. Everything is monitored and kept under control. War has changed. The age of deterrence has become the age of control, all in the name of averting catastrophe from weapons of mass destruction. And he who controls the battlefield controls history. War has changed. And when the battlefield is under total control, war becomes routine.
Think outside the cage.
The world is getting crazier. People are acting more and more insane. The end of the world is tomorrow. Tomorrow. There's only one thing to do when the world is falling apart. Listen to Basil and Gonz as they discuss this week's news and events through the lens of Bible prophecy.
You are listening to Canary Crime News Talk.
You're listening to Canary Crime News Talk. Today is June 1st, 2026. We are live tape on episode 945. And today, the great Depopulation. Signing on from Off the Grid, Razzle Dazzle. I'm your best buddy, Basil, and you are not crazy.
And my name is Gonz, at Face Like the Sun, director of the Age of Deceit films and author of Prophecy Without Panic, Recovering the Patterns Behind Biblical Prophecy, your favorite Asian provocateur for Christ, live to tape from the metaverse to bring you the best news, which is the gospel message of Jesus Christ, while reporting the egregious with a well-rounded, biblically grounded take on world events. It's Monday, folks.
Sounds like somebody's got a case of the Mondays.
Gary, what day is it? Ow,
Monday. It's June. We're halfway through the year almost, and it is happy birthday to CNN. Woo! CNN.
That explains it.
On this day in 1980. So congratulations.
Oh, that's actually earlier than I would have thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought we had a CNN jingle, but I'm not finding it here. I thought.
Oh, who knows? We have a. Let me just get this out of the way, Gonz, because it is Monday. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't want to cut you off. Are there any other?
No, I was just looking at the Canary Cry calendar, and I saw the 1980s CNN founded, and yeah, I mean that's all we need to know.
It. What else is there? What else matters? Nothing matters.
What else matters?
Hey,
Nothing matters.
Monday. I don't know. This happens. I feel like it's been happening a little bit more lately, but I just want to get it out of the way because without saying it out loud on the air, and it's going to be quick. Okay, we're going to get to the news. Don't worry. Don't freak out. And it leaves people. I don't want people to have to decode or decipher. This is maybe the Monday of all Mondays. Okay, and last night for me, just impossible to fall asleep. Just one of those no reason, no rhyme, no particular worries or anxieties, no particular anything. Just couldn't do it. Now, of course, as the lunatics out there, the lunar heads, the moon watchers will know, as some sort of fancy full moon, blue moon, micro moon. I think they call this one a micro moon,
allegedly the moon is a little further away from the earth. Who knows?
And
that's what they
this is, this has always been a pattern. I don't put any extra thought or stock into this. It just happens to be a fact that full moons definitely are harder for me to fall asleep, frustratingly so. I don't know why. Maybe it's just because it's brighter. Maybe it's like, my
The
Nordic
blue
Nephilim
light
blood.
thing. Yeah,
It could be a
there's like a
blue
blue
light
light thing.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
who knows? Whatever it just is what it is. So didn't get a wink, maybe one wink. I might, and then woke up late today, and you and I, we got this whole thing because we all have stuff going on. We couldn't figure it out. But sitting down in the chair, I'm just like, oh, why? What is that? And especially because over the weekend, no like super obvious important news. It's all psyops, it's all politics, it's all whatever. I'm sitting here, I'm going, okay. And I guess for those who've been tuning into Clubhouse, this will sound familiar. I'm just like, I'm gonna sit in the chair. I'm just gonna sit in the chair and I'm just gonna do the thing. Oh, look at that. Producership super low. Okay, all right. Oh, big surprise. Okay. We're just gonna do it. And I'm sitting here, you and I are doing our research and getting everything together, and it's just like, oh, it feels like a wet wool sweater, a wet wool sweater. It's just Mondays. Look, I'm not saying this is special. I'm saying this is just Mondays. And then I sit down and log in and start checking messages, start checking emails, start checking texts. And if it weren't for the God blessed producers and listeners of this show, for some reason, sending the nicest messages for no reason, unbidden, just saying it, just the simplest things. And I said to you before we started, I go, this is not the right word. The word I'm going to use is not the right word, and I'll search for a better word. But the word was like, it's kind of annoying when God just like slaps you in the face with, I'm sitting here going, why we do this? What's the point? Like whatever. And God's just,
I believe listeners, longtime listeners are aware of our existential sort of ups and downs, especially yours coming into the roller coaster. But yeah, today was especially a little dark. But hey, you go through the valley, there's always a little upswing, and
it's
hilarious.
All
the people commenting because it kind of took Basil out of the little funk. So
just a little bit. I'm not going to say I'm out, but I'm in the chair and we're going to go. Okay. And that's wonderful. We had some producers show up we haven't seen in a while. I want to give a shout out to what's his name? I think it's Zigzag. He's in the chat right now. Let me see.
Nice.
Zigzags. It was this was funny. This was great. Zigzag. Oh, come on. Here it is. Zigzag says, getting discharged from detox right now. Let's go. Okay, let's go. Is discharged from detox. Zigzag, this one's for you, buddy. We're just going. We're doing it. All right. Anywho, there you go. That's where we're at, and that's what we're gonna do. That's what we're doing. Let's see here. Anything else to mention? I don't think so.
Oh, real quick, I did publish my first Bible study on Patreon. So thank you to everyone who hopped in there. Ended up being about an hour and 45 minutes. Prophecy Without Panic, the framework. And if you're interested, the nice thing is it'll archive in Patreon. So if you want to go back and check it out, that's over time. You can do that if you can't get in right now. But it's $5 a month to access the video, $10 a month to get the resources to help lead your own Bible studies based on the material, which I encourage everybody to do. And so one of the things I'm doing every week is called Archetypalism in Action. And I will take a historic sort of prophetic item or person or event and a contemporary one, and we'll work it through the framework to see how it looks. And over the first one here, I did Nero Caesar. So if you're a preterist or a partial preterist, you get a little cookie, but not the full cookie though.
But also very important, even if somebody's not a preterist, this is a part of the conversation about Christendom that you need to be aware of and be knowledgeable on, because just to be able to talk about it, because you don't want to be sort of left unawares, because if you're in conversation, you got to know what somebody's talking about, or else it's not very effective. Anyway, so that's great.
There are some things that are pretty compelling, and I can see why people are willing to die on the hill of preterism or partial preterism. But then we kind of show why maybe some things are not complete there. And then also Elon Musk, Elon Musk talking about Jesus tech and how the stuff he's been saying is very false prophet.
Right. Well,
so
and it's exact. See, that's very important, and it fits exactly into some of the news we're going to talk about today. Some of the cultural analysis. I mean, it's perfect. So there you go. People have been wanting to have a Bible study with Gons for about 15 years. Now's your chance. Go to the Face Like the Sun Patreon. Right? It's the Face Like the Sun Patreon.
Yep. Face Like the Sun Patreon, and it's the first time really putting a paywall up for something. But as I said publicly last week or a couple weeks ago, I don't want people who don't want to be there in there, So if you want to be there, $5 a month, it's not asking for much. $10 a month for the resources, and let's do it. And then I'll feel better about releasing the book once we go through it, because if there's some major problems that I'm peddling out there, I don't want to put it in a book, So working some of that stuff out with everybody.
It's kind of like the Age of Deceit 4 focus group, only better because if it weren't for the people getting in there and keeping you accountable, who knows?
Yes,
it would never even exist. So if you've ever wanted Gons to write a book, it's partially your responsibility to go.
If they call me a heretic in a few years, it's your fault, everybody, for not holding me accountable.
Shout out to Malik. Interestingly enough, Malik says, LOL, that's wild. Was writing today and Nero ended up in one of my bars. Now, I'm not the coolest kid on the block, but context clues referring to a piece of the writing as bars, I think Malik is rapping.
He's rapping, yes.
Rapping.
It's this talking style of music these youngins do nowadays.
Rhyme talking.
Rhyme talk with rhythmic proclivities. Yes.
Okay. Let's get into it. I don't think there's anything else to announce.
I don't think so either. What are we?
I don't know if there's a jingle for this or not, but I labeled this section depopulation. Certainly there has to be some sort of
jingle.
You can always just do like a Bill Gates or like a
I don't know. That's a tough one. We can do like a New World Order thing.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
New World. Wait, how come there's no New World Order jingle? What happened to my New World
While
Order?
you look for that, let me give an intro because okay, look, for those who've been around paying attention to the weird stuff for a long time now, maybe even just with us for a mere 14, 15 years, depopulation has been a huge part of the theory of everything, right? It's the only thing. Not only is it a valid and applicable reasoning, and if not reasoning, I guess explanation behind so many of the global elite decision-making, culture-shaping, technology, economics, but everything kind of includes this, let's say, heuristic. One of the tags on basically everything going on in the world at the elite level is depopulation, right? And of course, this digs into smart cities. It digs into the Georgia Guidestones, Masonry, all the way down to just like modern monetary theory. Depopulation is a huge part of it. And of course, various names pop up. Of course, Klaus Schwab specifically, but Bill Gates, the hard hitters, right? The first stringers in the New World Order Fantasy League. It all surrounds depopulation. If not the number one heuristic, it's included in the search terms for everything, right? Yeah. And depopulation has been, of course, a conspiracy theory, of course, something that's been derided. And we know the cycle, right? We know the cycle of, let's say, conspiracy theories, where first they call you crazy, then they say, okay, it's happening, but it's not what you think. And then they say it is happening and it's a good thing. That's kind of, we see this play out on various timelines. It shouldn't surprise anybody, but we have now reached the final stages of the great depopulation, as the Atlantic puts it. And the answers are provided immediately. And of course, they're answers that we here at Canary Cry have had for a very, very long time.
We should invite fewer people to be born.
That's the one. That's the depopulation jingle.
That is the one. All right. So I'm going to first give a little background here. This is coming from The Atlantic. Okay. The Atlantic. The top shelf. Again, remember our analysis of The Atlantic, not necessarily a news outlet proper, right?
Right.
Not like
culture building, more than
exactly.
news. Yeah.
A culture coding publication, which is different from news, but related, and often disguises itself as news, but is really part of the culture coding mechanisms for mainstream culture. And of course, it must be said every time, it is the Atlantic is owned by Steve Jobs's widow, so it goes to the top of tech, it goes to the top of all these things, the technocracy, the eugenicists, the whole thing. So they have this wonderful article called "The Great Depopulation." Now, let me get that's it. Just the Great Depopulation, not conspiracy theorists say the Great Depopulation will get us all. Not the Great Depopulation is not what you think it is. Not just 3 words. The Great Depopulation. Let me give you a taste of it. Why has the number of births declined everywhere all at once? ? Some blame technology, particularly smartphones and social media. Others blame a kind of 21st century Weltschmerz, a sadness about the state of the world and our uncertain future in it. A long essay in the New York Times by Anna Louise Sussman titled "Why So Few Babies? We Might Have Overlooked the Biggest Reason of All." Very clickable YouTube title there for The Atlantic. Argues that today's generation is too anxious about the future to make the irreversible commitment of having a child. Not the irreversible commitment of choosing to not have a child or aging out or something like this. It is a commitment. It is a choice, just straight from the top. They're saying the depopulation is a choice that individuals are making. So right away, we have that sort of blame shift from from culture, from elites, from culture coding like The Atlantic, everything down to just like, no, the kids are just choosing not to. And then, of course, it's The Atlantic, so it's going to argue with itself unknowingly pretty much right away. Says, so who is right? Is this about phones and technology? Or is it a reflection of modern anxiety about the world? Or perhaps both? So it provides this dichotomy. The framing of the whole thing is the dichotomy of, is it phones that are stopping us from having babies? Or is it young people being so nervous? Now, those with eyes to see could already tell that those two things are not actually two separate things, right? Phones and social media and anxiety are inextricably linked. They are creating a false choice between phones and anxiety, when phones and anxiety are really just the same thing. Like the phone itself is not coming alive like a Toy Story character at night and then giving people vasectomies, okay? The result of the phone is causing the anxiety. But this culture crafting publication, very smart, very good at what it does, automatically gives you two false choices. Birth rates have been declining in developed, and notice how some of the choices of, is it the microplastics? Is it the toxins in our food? Is it the, radiation, microwaving our reproductive organs with our phones in our pockets, or just Wi-Fi? Is it, any number of things? The medications we're taking? Is it the fact that we're giving young people hormones that sterilize them? There's a million more obvious choices than, is it phones or are they just sad? But okay, let's continue. Birth rates have been declining in developed countries for a long time. As child mortality has declined, as women's education has increased, as female labor force participation has soared, as contraception use has proliferated, and as modern notions of feminism have empowered women to take more control over their bodies and their economic futures. Now, right there, notice they didn't mention phones or anxiety, but they did give a list of about 10 other reasons why the birth rate has been declining. And birth rates have continued to decline as smartphone usage has surged. Nice little correlation, not causation there. You know what else has surged along with the birth rate decline? Oh, I don't know. The amount of labradoodles people have as pets. It could be the amount of, I don't know, pick literally anything. Everything grows as the economy grows, correlating with the decline of the birth rate. But in this case, that's too complicated. So we just say the phones are doing it. As birth rates have continued to decline, as smartphone usage has surged, as housing prices have increased, as time spent at home on the internet has grown, and as socialization and coupling have declined. Okay, another list of 5 reasons. The decline is accelerating faster than almost anybody predicted, as John Byrne Murdoch recently observed in the Financial Times. United Nations demographers predicted that there would be 350,000 births in South Korea in 2023. The real figure came in at 230,000. The total fertility rate has fallen below the replacement level of 2.1 births per woman in almost every country in North America, South America, Europe, and Southern and Eastern Asia. Quote, the only okay. There you go. Okay, they're admitting the depopulation. It's happening everywhere. This is a big deal. Here's a block quote from a writer, and the block quote says, only 2 things are important right now in life. Fertility. In life, in all of life, only 2 important things right now, which this is kind of a weird concession that the Atlantic is making, especially considering the surge in pronatalism with people like Elon and sort of the tech side of things, but also the conservative Christian side of things, the political right. Having babies is a really big deal right now. This is obvious to anybody, but here's the Atlantic coming in with sort of the what you could call maybe leftist, beast system, technocratic sort of elite retelling of this story. The only 2 things are important right now in life: fertility and deep learning. The University of Pennsylvania economist Jesus Fernandez Villaverde said the conclusion of a recent lecture, quote, everything else is noise. Once you start thinking about these, it's hard to start thinking about anything else. I recently spoke with Fernandez Villaverde about why the birth rate is dropping, why it matters, and just how steep the decline is likely to get. Now, let me summarize. Now, it turns into sort of an interview style thing here.
I was hoping the 2 things was simple, like love God, love your neighbor as yourself. That would have been much more straightforward, but no, fertility and deep learning. Everything else is just noise. Great. That's fantastic.
On one hand, they say the only 2 things are important in life right now. Fertility being the first thing, which a lot of us will agree.
The survival of the species depends on being fertile.
It was the first commandment God gave man after creating Adam: be fruitful and multiply. Right?
Before the fall too. Think about that. How many little Adam Eve babies were running around before the fall?
Before any of that, the number 1 thing was be fruitful and multiply. This was even before the commandment to avoid the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, right? This is number 1. So you have the Atlantic placing fertility in the same order, really, as the book of Genesis is God's first commandment. But then he says, and deep learning, which is a reference to this like technocratic, transhuman beast system dystopia elite infrastructure, right? And so sort of marrying and pairing these things is this really bizarre but very clever way to kind of address the issue of the infertility from the elite sort of leftist side, but slide it into the context of, sort of pro-beast system conversation. So they go in, they talk about, at least this fella says, at this rate, population will like sort of irreversibly decline by the next 30 years. They kind of go over the numbers, the birth rate numbers there.
Have you seen some of these sort of conspiracy rabbit hole videos that are talking about, actually, we're told there's 8 billion people, but it's much, much less, and that some of these numbers may be skewed and whatnot?
I kind of believe it. You hear it a lot in the context of China. China claims to have 1.4 billion people, but
how does that work when they had the one-child policy for like 30 years?
Exactly. Like mathematically, it doesn't really work out. So like even our entire, as always, as we know, like every thing we're told about history or the world or anything, right, is all, if not a simulation in sort of the like simulation theory sense, it's a simulation in that it's a story crafted by the culture coding outlets to give people an idea of the world that's so big that they couldn't possibly, even desire to think that it might not be true. But anyway, so which makes it even that much more interesting that they're now working into mainstream culture. Like, okay, yes, gotta have babies. We're all gonna die. They even go into they make some interesting concessions here, right? It says if you go back to the 1960s and 1970s, it was common for public intellectuals to predict that the global population would rise and rise until the environment buckled and we suffered ecological disaster and widespread famine that wiped out billions of human souls, he says, wiping out human souls. That has not happened. Global fertility has declined significantly. It's falling faster than practically anybody predicted. Certainly folks like Paul Ehrlich, author of the infamous book, The Population Bomb. Why do you think these so-called experts were both so confident and so wrong? So Paul Ehrlich, for those who have been in the conversation for a while, he's the sort of proto-Malthusian, right? This idea during the 1960s and 70s when liberal thought was working its way into the institutions. Humans are bad. We're killing the earth. Climate change is real. And we need to stop having babies. Before the 1970s, of course, we can go back to the gal who's in the jingle you just played.
Margaret Mead. And
Margaret Mead,
there are others. Yeah.
Planned Parenthood. This kind of group who had been operating as the early transhumanists for like the 1920s, right? But by the 1960s, Paul Ehrlich, this Malthusian anti-human, animals are more important than people. You got to stop having babies. And Paul Ehrlich has been held up as like this godfather of modern humanity, meaning we need to accept that humans are cancer to the planet. We need to decline population, which was the sort of mainstream culture introduction to what we'll all recognize from things like, concepts from the elites like the Georgia Guidestones. Like, we need depopulation. There should only be 500,000 people. We live in a couple smart cities.
Wasn't it 500 million? But yeah, it's something.
Sure, whatever it was. I think it was 500.
Maybe it was 500.
Could have been 500 million. Whatever it was. A very small amount of people, right? They want to have this very elite, small human population, just enough so the elites can keep being elites and everybody else can sort of serve them. This utopian idea that less people is better. really became most popular with the book The Population Bomb by Paul Ehrlich. And the interviewer from The Atlantic is asking the interviewee, hey, Paul Ehrlich was wrong. Everybody who had us thinking for the past 50, 60 years that there's going to be too many people, they were wrong. Now, they're not including the fact that because of this idea of the population bomb and we need to depopulate, the elite decisions, laws, chemicals, food,
for decades,
water. We've been
Yeah.
living in this anti-natalist, not just like ideology, not in the abstract, like conceptual space, but they have crafted our entire society around depopulating, right?
Yeah, abortion. Hello, however many
Abortion,
millions of children murdered for cultural
regulation
reasons,
on-
but also to help with the balance of bringing humanity back in balance with nature. As
Yeah,
the
it's
Georgia
the religion,
Constitution
right?
says.
This
Yeah, it's
Malthusian religion.
yes.
And it goes, yes, of course, from the abortion topic, but also the regulation or the lack of regulation for chemicals in our food that hurt our fertility.
Yeah,
the whole thing, everywhere
whole
you
thing.
turn, our entire society, not even to mention the cultural programming of the phone and dating apps. And of course, even in this article, they talk about women's rights, women in the workplace, feminism, women's education, like the whole thing, our entire culture and physical environment has been purposefully designed to depopulate the earth for a very long time. But if you were going to point it out before today, you were a crazy conspiracy theorist, the craziest of conspiracy theorists, because not just a conspiracy theorist, but also you hate women, and also you want to enslave minorities. Also, every bad thing that the culture could say about you, like the worst things to put you in culture jail, were all surrounding this idea of depopulation. And if you were going to call out depopulation in any way, you go to culture jail, right?
Yeah.
But here's the Atlantic just kind of calling it out directly, and even calling out the sort of the godfather of it, Paul Ehrlich. They talk about, here's a quick thing, the population division of the United Nations, that's all capitalized. The population division, so this division of the United Nations, was created because there was a serious concern that we were having a population bomb. It's very difficult for an institution that has spent 60 years saying we had a population bomb to wake up and say, quote, there is no population bomb.
No, the population bomb is we're bombing the population. It's going down quickly. It's
right.
Opposite type of reaction.
So they're even calling out the United Nations, the global elite infrastructure, the post-World War II, New World Order,
The
globalist
Atlantic?
thing.
Calling out the UN? The Atlantic
Exactly.
calling out the UN? That is
exactly.
Mark
So-
your calendars. This is
So here we go. So this is what we see, right? They finally have this has come to the point where they can no longer say, it isn't what you think. Either it's not happening or it isn't what you think. Now they're coming to the point where they say, okay, you're right. The depopulation bomb is happening. And all we're waiting for is, and it's a good thing. Which is going to be hard to do because they're sitting here telling us everybody who said it was a good thing is not right. It's not. Now, of course, they talk about social norms. They talk about feminism, of course, social media, cell phones. They talk about women in education, being more educated. The change of one of their funniest ones is we're now at a more service-based economy. So our economy used to be based on strength, like the upper body strength of a man apparently ran the economy for forever. But because now we're service based, that more women can, kind of flourish. They talk about contraception, of course, contraception and socialization. They say, and then they say, in this part of the conversation, the interviewer says, More education for women is good. More freedom for women is good. I'm very pro access to contraception. So the reasons for the decline in fertility are a mix of, I think, quite clearly good things and arguably bad things. Okay. Clearly good things, but arguably bad things. Similarly, the implications of the decline in fertility combine both upsides and downsides. Let's talk about the upsides first. Okay. Um, just a few clues here. He says, in a world where population doesn't grow or where population starts to go down, we will consume less energy. Or the growth of energy consumption will be smaller. That's good for the environment. Not necessarily, but I'm not going to get into it. Second, it will help us redesign a lot of cities across the world, and talks about basically how smart cities are going to be the thing that saves us all. We finally have a reason, and this is a good thing, to redesign all of civilization with smart cities and wonderful things like that. They then go, let me do a quick little search here because I didn't want to get too in the weeds here. Here we go. The obvious thing that comes to mind is Social Security. Everything related to retirement benefits, Social Security payments, the equivalent of Medicare and similar health programs for the elderly across the world, that's going to impose a tremendous amount of cost on the planet. But also, are you going to start being forced to close primary schools? Oops, let me go up here. Oh boy. Don't lose it. Don't lose it, Basil. Don't lose it, Basil. Okay.
Hang by a thread.
But also you're going to start to be closing primary schools. Then they talk about schools having to close down because there's no children. Oh no, this new thing didn't let me highlight. Oh, here it is. It also seems, this is the interviewer, it also seems to me that the politics of immigration become a significant and unavoidable part of sustaining the welfare state. Because what do you need to sustain a welfare state? You need taxable income. Where does the income come from? It comes from people. And if you're running out of people, you need to import people, and that's called immigration. But in my experience, as someone who lives thousands of miles away from Europe, it seems to me like practically every country that allows immigrants to become a certain share of the population almost always has populist backlash. Slashing Social Security creates another backlash. So you find yourself in an environment where there's no long-term popular solution for your political problems. And that's what I see as an outsider. And then the interviewee goes into like, yes, you're right? They are conceding the fact that the reason immigration is such a big problem today is because of the welfare state, which is this sort of cycle of danger across the world, because you have a welfare state that's going to collapse if you don't have enough babies, and you've been stopping, the natural population from having babies. So then you got to import the immigrants to support the welfare state. But then the problem is, most often, those immigrants need the benefits of the welfare state more than they are able to pay back into it. So they kind of admit this kind of death spiral that everybody has us in. One last thing here. They do say, interestingly, in some numbers, they say right now, Japan, which we haven't been following closely on the show, but I've been following closely outside. Immigration is a really hot topic in Japan. And right now, about 5% of Japan is immigrants. And they say in 200 years, through the necessary immigration, now 200 years is a long time, but in 200 years, Japan will be 95% not Japanese, and there will only be 5% Japanese people in Japan.
Yes, if it persists, and of course, yeah, culturally they don't really like immigrants getting in there, but also there's the problem of declining populations and older generations. They live longer, but they're not having as many babies,
Yeah,
and so
it's a big problem.
it's
They're
been a
admitting
problem.
right here out loud in the Atlantic, hey, uh, if Japan brings in the immigrants that the math says that they will need, that in 200 years, Japan is just going to be the name for a place and not a culture, not a people. And they even kind of, give a tip of the hat to the Japanese people who are sort of worried about immigration, and they kind of say, yeah, that worry is real. Now, they end it with this question. Of course, you couldn't talk about it without this. The interviewer says, you said only two things matter in the world. One is fertility. The other one is deep learning - AI. How do these trends intersect? Okay. Two things in the world matter: multiply and fill the earth, and AI. Let's hear it. I mean, just the perfect transhumanist theology, right?
Yeah.
You get the okay, humans are good, we need more humans, but we can't do it without AI. It's the only way to save humanity. The interviewee answers, they intersect to some degree, but not as much as sometimes people think. If thanks to artificial intelligence and robotics, a lot of jobs can be done by computers and robots, and that generates a lot of economic growth, and that helps us to pay for Social Security, that will make the transition much easier. I'm a bit of a techno optimist in that sense, and I'm glad this is happening. I think it's going to give us more degrees of freedom to adapt our society. Yeah, no kidding. But coming back to my point before, this is not about GDP. My wife and I love to go to a small village in England and spend some time on vacation. It's a lovely English village. They recently closed the local pub because of population decline. The problem is the local pub in an English village is not just the place you go for beer, it's the place where you meet your neighbors. It's the social gathering place of the village. How are you going to substitute that with artificial intelligence? Of course, how are you going to do it? So we have this turning point in the culture crafting, the mainstream culture crafting, and we see it politically, right? We see it in the LA mayoral race. We see it in the California gubernatorial race. We see it in a lot of the politics right now, that there's enough people who are practically worried about the practical things that the Democrat side says doesn't exist, right? Your worries about fertility makes you racist. Your worries about AI make you, an extremist or a terrorist. Your worries, all the things, like a lot of Spencer Pratt's political messaging is like, look, I just am seeing the world as it is, which you could argue is the sort of, general right-wing attitude. It's just like, look, I'm just seeing what's wrong, and everything's wrong. And that's why maybe, perhaps, at a turn of history, LA will have a Republican mayor. Who knows? We'll see. They could come out either way.
Not the way they're able to rig elections out here, man. You underestimate the power of the rig.
It'll be a whole thing.
Yeah,
but so you have the culture crafting of the elites, again, generally considered left of the Atlantic, saying, okay, everybody, the great depopulation, it's real. It's because this and that. It's because of Paul Ehrlich. We get it. It's happening. It's real. Okay, we can't deny it anymore. If we keep denying it, then Republicans are going to win all the races, and we can't have that. So we will, create this very subtle, very clever, much like the adversary always does, opportunity to kind of stay a leftist, but also not have to lie to yourself or live in this sort of simulation that the sort of elite messaging has us in. And however, of course, the answer to all these problems is going to be AI. Only two things matter: fertility and AI. So, as far as what our leftist friends, or even not our leftists, are just sort of default, not paying attention, just people who get everything they know from the culture because they want to belong, and that's okay. I talk about my buddy, who I've known for 30 something years, and he knows I'm a crazy person, and he says, I just want to get along. Like, I just want to think what I'm supposed to think, and that's that. That's way more people than we think.
Yeah.
It's come to the point where those regular people are so at risk of like right-wing radicalism and voting Republican, that they've sort of shifted this opportunity to live in reality, but also vote for Kamala Harris in 2020.
Right. It's so interesting and kind of infuriating to some effect, because usually by the time there is admission to a bad take or a few decades of policy based on a couple people's research or whatnot, there's overcorrection, right? It's like when you're steering a car and you go one way and you try to overcorrect, so you turn the steering wheel the other way too fast, and then you flip the car, right? That's kind of how I feel like with this whole thing, where it's like, okay, we were going one direction, we thought that was the direction we're supposed to go, and then, oh look, it didn't work out that way, so we're gonna turn the car real quick, and it's not gonna fix the problem. It's gonna create a bigger problem. And do they not notice that, hey, maybe our takes today are not as solid as we'd hoped, based on the account and record of, hey, we follow this Ehrlich guy's theology basically for population control for 40, 50, 60, 70 years. And oh my goodness, the birth rate is declining too rapidly. Now we have this big problem. We got to reverse it. And let's use science and tech and AI. And
exactly. And the beautiful part is that it seems to be that the elegantly laid trap is exactly how we and others have been talking about for a long time now, that the answer of producing this totally insane abstract simulation and convincing as many people as possible to live inside it is not because they're very good at this. We talk about the pendulum swinging, but it never swings in the direction that you necessarily expect, because it's not like they didn't have a plan. And the plan is working out exactly as we've always said it was, which is, okay, they'll admit the problem, but the solution is AI, it's smart cities, it's, it's
by the time they're ready with the solution to offer, they're not going to bring up the problem. They're going to deny the problem
is the answer.
until
the system is the savior. Okay, get chipped, get in the smart city, get in the things, and to a degree, if you're not paying attention, that seems like it was the obvious answer the whole time. But because they're controlling the problem, saying it's either smartphones or anxiety, not really diving into the real reasons for fertility, which are much more environmental as they are social, but just making it this like, we'll frame the whole problem in our own special way, so therefore we can frame the solution in the special way that is exactly, they talk about how Paul Ehrlich was wrong, but then the solutions that they give are exactly what Paul Ehrlich would have wanted. It's really incredible. The Atlantic, they are professionals. You gotta, as much as we make fun of them, they are really genius at the thing. Which brings me to this next article, which I think fits perfectly and beautifully from The Guardian, which will lock into so many things. Don't worry, this one's short. The headline is, "Are, quote, mind children the future of reproduction?"
Speaking of the beast system.
We admit there's a fertility problem. We don't have enough people. We're not going to have enough people. And the future of reproduction is not making more human children. It's mind children. And you're hearing that right. For those who are not reading it, you're just listening. MIND, like brain children, mind children. Love it. Love it. Forget
dirty babies into candles.
And remember the context, and they'll mention it here in a second, but remember the context of this weird battle between now the culture saying, okay, there is a problem here. Fertility is an issue. Immigration, is one way to do it, or smart cities, et cetera, et cetera. But compare and contrast that with the trajectory we've seen recently in Silicon Valley about pronatalism. Elon telling everybody to have babies, a bunch of Silicon Valley people having this pro-natalist thing, which also includes transhumanism, laboratory babies.
We need more Neuralink babies. We need more. It's there's this weird. I picture this sort of world elite going to the Satan meeting, and then there's this big creature Satan character watcher or something on a throne, and he's like, depopulate the earth, and they're like, yes, master, and they start depopulating the earth, and they're like, there's not enough people for us to eat. Repopulate it, but now we have this, use this, and it's like AI or something.
Exactly. So they laid out the problem. There's not enough people. Okay, we all agree on this. Not enough people. But the future of reproduction. Okay, we admit that we all need reproduction. We all admit this now. Mainstream culture. We get it. We need more babies. What's the solution? Well, mind children are the future of reproduction. And reproduction being the key word there, okay? To reproduce, to make more of you, okay?
That's a co-op of a word right there.
It's the key to it all.
Yeah.
They forget dirty nappies. Forget dirty nappies. In Silicon Valley, there's increasing chatter about virtual offspring. A few months ago, an AI researcher, remember AI is the solution to depopulation. A few months ago, an AI researcher from Europe, of all places, of course, attended a dinner party in Silicon Valley.
Oh boy, that's how everything started. That sounds like a bad movie.
Exactly. It's all these private Silicon Valley. Go to a party, rub shoulders with the global elite depopulation, cosmists. Yeah. And keep in mind that there's all this chatter as well about Silicon Valley Christianity growing, right?
Yeah.
They're all Christian. They're all going to church, but it's this weird transhumanist techno Christianity. Peter Thiel talking about the Antichrist. We got to stop the Antichrist by making the beast system. All right, here we go. A few months ago, an AI researcher from Europe attended a dinner party in Silicon Valley. During one of the many courses, the host addressed his guests, all of whom worked in AI. The researcher paraphrased his message like this, quote, "Isn't it amazing that we are the last generations of humans who will need to think about procreating biologically? We were lucky enough to be born at a time where we can simply upload our consciousnesses instead."
We're so lucky. We're so lucky that we
Since 2012, when we're reporting on the 2045 project, the uploading consciousness, the live forever tech people, this whole thing. Look, we're so lucky that we don't have to think about procreating biologically. Now, he's not even talking about test tube babies or real humans or biological humans. We're lucky enough to be born at a time where we can simply upload our consciousnesses instead. Quote, "I didn't see that coming," the researcher told me. "I was just enjoying my fish." But the host was serious. His words struck the researcher as the kind of comment a well-informed person might have made 100 years ago, once antibiotics had been invented. Quote, "Aren't we lucky that we came after?" Yeah, we're so lucky. What's the comparison there? He's saying you may have said, "Aren't we lucky that we're born after antibiotics, so we can survive and not die if we get a cat scratch or something?" He's comparing that to, "Aren't we lucky we can upload our consciousness instead of having babies?" Suddenly, all the guests were talking about mind children. And the researcher turned to their neighbor to ask what this phrase meant. Quote, he said, "Oh, this is the book. And haven't you read the book? And oh my God, you should really read the book." Remember, this is all about books, right? We talked about all the authors, the psychonauts, the cyberneticists. It's all the same crowd, okay? You had Aldous Huxley, you had George Orwell, obviously modeled today's world for us. Of course, Margaret Sanger, all the way to Aleister Crowley. And we have another book here written in the mid-20th century. Haven't you read the book? The book in question was Hans Moravec's Mind Children, The Future of Robot and Human Intelligence, which was first published in 1988. And which at the time, according to economist and futurist Robin Hanson of George Mason University, caused a big splash in a small pond, the community of robotics and machine learning experts to which Moravec belonged. Remember, this is in the late 1980s. Moravec's book is more philosophical treatise than technological manual. Weren't they all? Weren't they all philosophical treatises? Yeah. But the central idea is that cultural evolution has a long since taken over from biological evolution as the most powerful force shaping our humanity. Goes to the transhumanists, saying it's our responsibility to guide our own evolution now. And the logical extrapolation of this is that the information that encodes our future selves would soon be packed into hardware and software rather than DNA. These mind children could be equipped with soft, squishy bodies like real children, but they could also take a kaleidoscope of other physical or indeed non-physical forms. So they're talking about robot children, right? And we know about the people who get the dolls, the real baby dolls, and they raise these little baby dolls, and they don't have to have real children. They can get the self satisfaction, the self aggrandizement, the emotional fulfillment that comes from having a baby without actually getting another human spirit involved, which is like the sickest version. But they're excited about this. But in this case, they're not even talking about just dolls. They're saying, oh, you can get your mind baby, can live in your phone or non-physical forms, a little spirit baby in the cloud there, the counterfeit spiritual realm where the devil rules on this earth. Moravec observed that the ultimate consequence of this revolution are unknown, but he also appeared to welcome it. Within a century, he wrote, machines would exist, quote, in whom we can take pride when they refer to themselves as our descendants. So now we're talking about robots, not in just they can do stuff for us, or they can, run the economy and we can sit back and do nothing. They can do all the work, but that even the satisfaction of reproducing, we can take pride in these robots that are our descendants. Hanson shares his conviction that the revolution is inevitable as soon as AI attains something experts agree to call human-level intelligence. Quote, we are going to generate an explosion of things like us in the future who will be different from us in many ways, Hanson says. Quote, to the extent they have minds somewhat like ours, they are our mind children. Angela Aristidou, who studies the real-life deployment of AI at University College London, is not surprised that Moravec's book is enjoying a revival. She says that what in 1988 might have read like science fiction and still might to most of us looks eminently realizable to those in the know, which I love because in her opinion, those in the know are the tech bros at the dinner party, not realizing that those in the know are also the Canarians who have been on this probably longer than a lot of these people at these dinner parties. So eminently realizable. Elon Musk's pro-natalist stance is the exception among tech types. She says, while the idea that the clock is ticking on biological reproduction is far more common, and the harbingers of that, perhaps self-fulfilling prophecy, are there for all to see. Delegates to this year's NVIDIA GTC in San Jose, California, a major AI conference, were treated to an AI avatar of NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang, for example. Then there's the phenomenon of human AI weddings. Such unions obviously can't produce biological offspring, but since the human in the relationship has usually created their ideal romantic partner in AI, Aristotle asks rhetorically, quote, why wouldn't they also devise their ideal child? So now you're even mixing this AI girlfriend, and don't worry, you can still reproduce with your AI girlfriend in the form of the mind child. In thinking about this post-biological future, though, we have to stretch our concept of child. Hello, is that not what they've been doing anyways for the past decade? Changing our idea of child from, all sorts of horrible movements, social movements. The new entity could be an AI that human parents lovingly and jointly sculpt to meld the perceived best parts of themselves, as is already technically possible with gene editing in biological reproduction. But given that we'll be doing away with birth, death, and generations, as these concepts are ordinarily understood, it could also be something quite different. A human could simply upload their own consciousness so that it outlives their physical shell, in which case the child is something closer to a clone. The human could, so they're talking about what we've talked about for a long time, which is uploading your consciousness so that you can live forever. Well, in this new crisis of fertility and this interest in reproduction, they're just rebranding uploading your consciousness to live forever to uploading your consciousness to live in your mind child, where it's not you, it's your progeny. It's almost like they realize that the consciousness itself, the experience of your soul and your spirit, can't be transferred over. Maybe it can. I don't know. The devil's very clever. But sort of framing it as, don't worry, you don't need a baby. Those pesky babies. You can get all the same emotional and existential fulfillment by uploading your consciousness to live as your progeny. The human could transfer some of their consciousness into their AI companion, or conversely, devise an AI companion that they perceived to be the opposite of themselves, creating your AI wife, and then, mixing your consciousness.
A lot of leaning on perception. Perception is not always
right.
Reality. It's like perceived best qualities, perceived aspects of yourself, and all the. It's just a lot of perception. I got more on this, but I'm gonna let you finish. Going on.
He says perceived to be the opposite of themselves in the belief that opposites attract. Another assumption they're making there. In all cases, a new entity emerges, but the line between self, partner, and offspring is blurred. If that sounds incestuous, remember, there's no risk of medical conditions associated with inbreeding, though there could be others. So they even admit, like, hey, we know incest is bad, but don't worry, there won't be biological mishaps. So it's
right. There's no biological incest going on. I mean, hey, there might be some psychological effects there, but we don't know about that yet.
We don't know. We'll figure that out later. Okay, almost done. A couple more things. Okay. Aristotle doesn't doubt that AIs can augment human relationships. They have been shown to be helpful as assistants in therapeutic context, for example, or overcoming loneliness. But she's concerned what happens when AIs become human substitutes. If a human can delete their AI spouse, she says, quote, how does that work as an equitable marriage the way we understand it? It doesn't, obviously.
Why do they ask these questions? These people, okay, I'm sorry, continue.
It's sort of posing. It's kind of posing as a critique when it's really not a critique, right? She also worries that a two-tier society will emerge. No way.
Really?
In which a tech-savvy, well-resourced elite customizes its AI creations for high realism, maintaining control over their settings and updates, while everybody else has to make do with the cheaper off-the-shelf products that place them at the whim of developers. Not even saying the two-tier system of like biological humans and AI offspring. No. The biological part is cut out altogether. The social stratum is between customizable AI offspring and the offspring off the shelf AI offspring. Again, this totally bizarre sort of manufactured dichotomy that doesn't actually.
It's racist. It's totally racist. It's like you low-life slave AI childs, and then you're, highly customized elite AI children.
Says, quote, as if there's three entities in this relationship: the human, the AI companion, the AI developer. Among the many ethical, legal, and practical issues this throws up is whether the developer would be considered a co-parent to a mind child. The developer of the AI being considered a co-parent. We've talked about for a long time the eugenicist part of it, the Epstein Zorro Ranch, right? Where he's trying to create the perfect offspring, but they all are part of him. They all have his DNA, even though that there's, whatever, dozens or hundreds of other mothers. In this case, the AI developer acts as the Epstein part of this, having his inclusion into everybody else's mind.
He wants to be like the right, like a.
It totally caters to the transhumanist sociopath elite, right?
Yeah.
That's why they love this idea, because if
the Genghis Khan effect, where he's sort of the like the father of an entire race of beings, kind of thing. Yeah.
Right. It's sick, but they love it. This is why they love it.
Oh, they love it. Yeah, of course they
Hansen says there are legal scholars and ethicists thinking about such things. Oh, great. But until society takes its post-biological future seriously, hey, depopulation is real. The only answer is AI. Take the post-biological future seriously. See how it's working in tandem with the final fake admission that fertility is a problem. Not that it's not a problem, but their version of it that's making people take a post-biological future seriously. The safeguards they are proposing have no hope of being debated, let alone implemented. So unless you get on board now and start thinking about AI children, then hey, you better watch out, because then you won't get to debate and implement these safeguards. Last one. Nor is anybody discussing arguably the thorniest issue of all. Okay, this is the thorniest issue of all, Gons. Out of all the thorny issues that may have come up, this is the one most of all. Is humanity staring down its own last act? Hansen says that the emergence of more complex life forms doesn't necessitate the extinction of older, simpler ones, or there'd be no more bacteria on Earth. But if that strikes you as less than reassuring, take a leaf out of Moravec's book and focus on the positives.
Oh, just focus on the positivity, everybody. Just worry.
Quote, very little need be lost in this passing of the torch, he wrote in 1988.
Torch. Yeah,
exactly. Quote, it will be in our artificial offspring's power and to their benefit to remember almost everything about us, even perhaps the detailed workings of individual human minds. And this goes to a very interesting and ancient idea. This was, there's many cultures that include this, but some notable ones. The idea that as long as someone remembers you, then you are technically alive forever. Like your eternal life is
like a legacy. Yeah.
Is in being remembered, is in your legacy. So don't worry, it's okay that the robots will take over, because we will live on in the minds, quote unquote, in the brains, in the memories of the robots. Okay, so don't fear, don't fight it. The robots will remember you, which is pointing directly at one of the existential parts of having a child, right? It's that parts of you live on in your child. Your DNA is a part of that on a biological level, but also what you teach them, what you pass on to them, the next generation, continuing your influence on this earth, not to put it even religiously or anything like that, is just kind of part of the psychological impulse to procreate. Like, that's how you can continue to affect things on earth, having your offspring. And so don't worry. The fact that you won't or maybe can't have biological offspring, you can still get that sort of primal impulse taken care of, because your robot child will remember you. I mean, there's
Yeah.
nothing more dystopian. And to have it written in The Guardian, too. This is another one of those culture crafting outlets.
Yeah. Wow. That's just, I mean, there's so much here. One of the first things that I want to point out is the story that I often bring up when it comes to these types of things is Matthew Mather's The Atopia Chronicles. And I think it was published in the early 2010s, maybe late 2000s. But they have this thing called they basically have what it's described in this Guardian article. They have a 2-tiered society. You have sort of the elite who have access to all the stuff, and then the general population who adore them and they treat them like celebrities. And there are many subplots in this story. And one of the subplots is a woman who, I believe, she either can't have children or she has like trauma from losing a child or something like that. I forget the exact setting. But this person decides to use what's called in the story psi, which PSSI, psi. It's kind of like the virtual rooms in Star Trek, where you can go in there and recreate any environment, and it seems very real. You can train, or you can do all kinds of stuff. And the concepts had been explored, and probably the most popular one being Star Trek, where you don't. There's episodes of old Star Trek shows where they have a scene start off in that simulated room and then quickly goes to like the white room of nothingness, and you realize like, oh, that was a whole simulation, that wasn't even real. And so it's a similar concept, but in the story Atopia Chronicles, this woman starts having multiple children, these virtual children, and she becomes very emotionally attached to them, to the point where her boyfriend or husband or whoever it is, he's along the lines more of like, hey, these are virtual children, they're not real. We gotta get out of this simulation here. Let's go back to the real world, or let's go to a different simulation or whatever it might be. Let's get out. We're done with them. But she was so emotionally attached that she started hiding the children inside the virtual realm there, in like an attic or something like that. So when the guy shows up, they're hiding from him. And so it brings up the question, obviously, of, hey, if you are emotionally and psychologically attached to what is perceived as an individual, is that individual real, and all that kind of stuff. And what obviously these are all the ethical questions that I guess are being brought up now in The Guardian, maybe finally at a certain level, in a dystopic way. Maybe not dystopic for some people, maybe it's utopic for others. That's why the book is interesting. It's called Atopia. It's not neither a dystopia nor or a utopia. It depends on where you're looking at it from. It's atopia. It's non sort of definitive in that way. But if you really kind of think about it, the one aspect that was missing from this entire Guardian article was very obviously God. Like, God is not entering the picture when it comes to this conversation. And so when you take out God out of the conversation, you're left with trying to find some footing ethically, morally. And that's where I think when you read these, they sound so dystopic because they don't have that foundation. When they start looking for stuff, it's like, well, this makes sense. It's like, yeah, in this weird context of a weird ethics that you're putting together on your own to try to make sense of it. And it goes back to a big word, and we've used it before, but it's a big word. It's the word ontology. There's a ontological argument for the existence of God. It's the philosophy of being. It's kind of a metaphysical conversation. But, what is real based on what attributes? And you start thinking about it that way. And so the virtual children, or the mind children that some people might start having, are they real? Well, some might argue, hey, if I'm emotionally attached to these mind children and I take care of them in the virtual realm or metaverse or whatever, and I feed into them, my thoughts and my being into them, then yes, they're real children. They might as well be just as real as a physical biological child.
Mhm.
The only
Right.
difference is they live in the virtual space. And in fact, we can have them live in the meat flesh world. We just have to transfer the data into some body or some squishy robot person or something. The body doesn't even matter at that point. It's whatever vehicle. You can put him into a little squishy egg or something, and you can carry him around. So the physical matters less in that regard, but the spirit, the soul, is a real person because I believe it's I'm taking care of it. And again, it goes back to that ontological concept, because a virtual child may psychologically be real to the user or the person interacting with it, but it doesn't make it a human person created by God necessarily at all.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so we are very clearly shown, hey, God made man in his image. It's pretty simple. It's not that complex. It's like, okay, God made us in his image. And so if we create something in our image, some might argue, oh, well, then that's just another step removed from God. God created us, we create it. But there are so many places in the scripture where this type of thing is a counterfeit. It's not real. Like idols, for example. You can think of it as idols. They're carving idols of gods or even maybe themselves or, people. And they
Right.
were thinking that this had some significance. And instead they were worshiping demons and stuff, right? So it's like they're not doing exactly what they think they're doing. And then this passage comes to life. We've used it in the context of this type of thing before, but it's Daniel 2, verse 43. And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave to one another, even as iron does not mix with clay. And the iron, of course, in this passage, some people say this is about, the elite king, the rulership with the commoners. They mingle to try to save the Roman Empire, but it doesn't really last. And some of that makes sense too in sort of the ancient Near East audience. But in 2026, we look at it, and not to turn it into eisegesis, we're not reading into it, but what we can draw from it is the principle of, hey, if we try to mix our humanity, our seed, with anything other than humans, probably not a good thing. I mean, the Bible is actually full of examples of how that causes judgment, like over and over again. Even the book of Revelation has reference to that. So it seems like we don't learn our mistakes as a humanity or like a human species, especially when you take God out of the equation. You're left with these, to us, to me, it just sounds psychotic and, insane and absolutely crazy. But again, for the people within the ivory towers of academia and all this, you remove God out of the picture, and what you're left with is this sort of nonsensical insanity that sounds like a good idea. Like, hey, having mind children sounds like a good idea. It sounds like the progression of where we're headed with all of our AI and robots and all these different things that are going to help save humanity.
They make it sound like the only choice, right? They make it
like
sound
the only
like
choice,
it's
yeah.
the answer to the problem.
And what's really kind of crazy, and I know it's sort of an obvious thing, but I think it needs to be stated too, is that this idea of a mind child is an absolute, psychologically, an absolute setup for the worshiping of the image of the beast. Because if you look at Revelation 13, the people are there, the beast shows up, he does all his stuff, and then the beast gets a mortal head wound, and then the second beast, or the false prophet, is the one that performs miracles. Some have suggested that maybe part of that miracle is to bring the mortal head wounded individual back to life, in a sense. But the miracles are so powerful in the sight of men that the people start building an image to the beast, and they start worshiping the image, and the image receives breath. So it's actually alive it's allowed to give breath to the image. So this is the one case where, we always talk about AI and image, or whatever, robots and stuff. Are they demonic? Are they whatever? but we've never considered like, okay, is it really a person? Like, how would we know it's actually a person or something that has God's breath in it? Well, Revelation 13 seems to suggest the false prophet is allowed to give breath to the image. That breath, if you're thinking about it kind of just plainly, is the breath that God gave to Adam, that created man. And so this is God breathed spirit into this image. And I mean, to the point where it's like, that doesn't sound like, we're so used to thinking like, oh, the image is a counterfeit, the image is like evil and all this. And certainly that's what turns out. It's, not good. It's an evil thing that demands worship and kills otherwise, if you don't take the mark and all these things. But people miss the part where it's like, it's allowed to give breath. That breath is the breath of God that is being allowed to be given to this image. And so while we think that, I think this mind children is going to be whatever. Good luck with good luck with the mind children and all that. At what point will it actually manifest itself into a more or less a real, quote unquote, being that has breath? And think about the deception. Think about the deception of how powerful it would be if there's a virtual image or whatever, robot, whatever it might be. It's not just AI. It's not just a chat bot. It's not just some algos working, but, more than just hey, it seems to be conscious, or it seems to whatever, Richard Dawkins thinking that his Claudia AI is sentient because it, strokes his ego or something like that. Much more than that, to a point where the whole world is convinced that it's actually alive and it's got its own set of thoughts and its own ability to think. And the path is there. It just seems like the path to that scenario is becoming more and more tangible as the secularists are sitting there trying to figure out ways to escape death and, like live forever and do all this stuff. It's like, it's just so interesting to me that some ancient scriptures are like, yeah, they're going to do that. And Mark of the Beast and Image of the Beast and Judgment.
Not only,
not
only possible, but also imminent, as the article says, and also a good thing, an answer.
Right. Yes, an answer to escape, because all of it is in the context of escaping our reality. In the story Atopia Chronicles, this woman decides to have these virtual children. It was sort of set up. It started as like, well, let's just see what it's like to have children, just so we can see if we're compatible as parents or whatever it might be. But ultimately, it was to fulfill a longing or a loss or pain and trauma and all these things. It was to feed something, to fix those things that this lady, this particular character was suffering from. And we're no different. We want to find those solutions to the things we struggle with, the traumas, the pain, the bad memories, whatever it might be. And, people fall into different things to try to fill that void. But part of the biblical account also is that there is suffering. Like there is tribulation. And until God restores creation, that includes us, but literally restores creation, a new heaven, a new earth, all of it. It's like, yeah, you're going to suffer. We're in this fallen state. There is going to be suffering. And it's like, well, let's just try to avoid the suffering. Well, it doesn't really work out too well if we try to solve those things like suffering, things like death on our own terms. And yeah, man, we must be very, who knows? We don't know. But in terms of the iteration of such pursuits and the tools available to pursue them by the folks that are not looking at it from the biblical view or view of the existence of God or something, how can we not say that we're living in some kind of era that resembles the days of Noah, when it seems such pursuits were rampant and daily and constant? So
it's right there, baby. It's right there. So very fun, man. And again, as we're looking around and we're seeing so much of, eschatology, biblical prophecy, things like that, not only, gain more attention from the sort of skeptical kind of waking up people, but also getting it injected right into the sort of mainstream culture, creating this weird new, I guess, battle lines or lines in the sand, where those who are formerly quote unquote normal people, not looking into crazy things, not thinking crazy things or whatever, they're getting sort of indoctrinated into the crazy stuff. However, just on the side of the darkness, right? And calling it good. Like, like the Bible says,
And it's a point that I made in, I think it was Age of Deceit 2, that it was just on my heart so much. I really wanted to instill this idea into the film, and I tried my best to do it. But looking at, because what is technology, right? Technology is, on this side of the fall, technology is a way for us to invent things to try to solve a problem, whether it's more efficiency or a simple plow that'll help us, garden better or whatever. We think about the fall, there was shame. What's the first thing that Adam and Eve did? They sewed fig leaves together to cover themselves. That is technology. That it's a very crude example, but it's the first example of man doing something, creating something to solve the problem of the fall.
Yeah,
and
solve
I
the
just think
problem created,
created by the fall. Yes,
from disobedience, right? The
from
problem
disobedience, right?
exists because of their disobedience, and then find a way to fix it outside of the promise, right? Or outside of God's order there. And you could see it all the way through history, and just, I mean, it's more entertaining now because it's so explicit,
I would imagine this type of thing. There's probably a few hundred years where a lot of the population that were paying attention to stuff were, it was things like magic or things like the supernatural were much more prominent in conversation. But certainly in the last few hundred years, because of the Enlightenment period, a lot of that was completely set aside from any kind of sort of pursuit of rationality or pursuit of enlightenment or whatever you want to call it. It's so funny to see it come back raging, but it's like it's come back shiny and new, all these AI and now the alien thing and all this stuff to kind of bring back the conversation. And
it's interesting. To say that, technology is man's, again, kind of using the gifts that God give them, our intellect and our creative power and stuff. But again, finding ways that we ourselves can rectify the result of our disobedience and the fall, these problems, that wouldn't exist if it weren't for our disobedience. But then again, the problems are here. We find a way through it. Just in case there's anybody out there, I don't know, sort of tempted to misunderstand or, tempted to
I'm not trying to
find a way in which,
bad.
Not necessarily saying that technology is a result of the fall, or technology is sort of synonymous with sin, because there's definitely it's easy to get that idea mixed up in there. And you also see this in articles and mainstream talk about Luddites, right? They think technology is evil, or they think technology is from whatever. But it's a very
anti-tech extremists last episode, right?
Right. It's a very subtle difference, not necessarily calling tech evil, but the fact that we use those co-creative power, not like magical power or something, but that strength that God gave us, problem solving and technology, it is not necessarily a product of the fall, but we use that gift God gave us to try to solve our own problems from the fall, from the extension of God sort of lifting that version of his perfection and like provision for us, leaving us to have to solve those problems ourselves, which admittedly is amazing, like that God gave us that ability. But it kind of reminds me of, God's response to the fall when Adam was cast out, and there's sort of the enumerations of like how things are going to be now. There will be more pain in childbirth. The part of that was, you'll toil night and day. Like you have to
You will
work.
work. Yeah.
Your work is going to be never ending. And that's because you're not in the garden anymore. You're going to have to work and work and work, baby. And that's kind of where our need to exercise this creative ability for technology is because of the fall. We have these problems. It's no longer solved for us. And so we have to work constantly to find ways to make it through the ramifications of our disobedience. And so, it's both amazing that God gave us the ability to create technology to solve our problems. It just so happens to be that we have those problems because of our own disobedience. If that's not like a beautiful way to, I guess, describe or even just imagine the fallen state, right? That's like it's got this weird I wouldn't say upside to it, but we get to flex those muscles. Now, who knows? Maybe if we had stayed in the garden, we still would have had the ability and the desire to make technology, but maybe it would have been out of some other reason. Who knows? God, gave us those gifts for a reason. But it's this really subtle, sort of beautiful, nuanced way to talk about our state before, our state after, this gift that we are given before, and how we exercise this gift after proclaiming to God our sort of independence, right? That was and I don't mean it in a good way. I don't mean it in America way. That was our mistake with declaring our independence from God's law, right? Which then put us in this position to have to be stuck in this continuous cycle, creating technology to try to remedy the hardship after the fall. And then that technology creating more problems that we then have to create more technology to solve that problem. And it's this compounding thing over human history, showing the sort of, fallen cycle of like daily suffering that we experience on a daily basis. But you can kind of track it not only, and again, because God is good, he did not only leave us to our own hardship, but he also gave us the gifts to overcome that hardship. But then again, through the fallen nature, cause more hardship. This endless cycle of work that was a result of our actions in the garden, or Adam's. I'll put it on him, right? It's his fault. But it's really interesting.
I don't even blame these people in Silicon Valley, but I think is so fascinating, and more people probably should use this angle to evangelize to others, which is this pursuit proves the Bible is true.
Yeah.
Because back, of course, the punishment of mankind. The punishment of mankind was, hey, woman, I will this is Genesis chapter 3, verse 16. I will sharply increase your pain in childbirth. In pain, you will bring forth children. Your desire will be for your husband. He will rule over you. So this implies that childbirth before the fall was not as painful. It says increase, so maybe it was a little painful, but it was not as.
So there was some pain.
Maybe there was some pain, but certainly not what we have now. And so for these technologists who aren't considering God whatsoever to be sitting there trying to bypass all biological pain in childbirth, but still wanting a child, still wanting that offspring, and to have
even that promise of painless childbirth, because there's no child. It's
you're right. Right.
Our own technological attempt to overcome that hardship, which also highlights, the worship of tech, or the idolization of tech, sort of paralleling the Luciferian worship of self, because we're, worshiping the work of our own hands to solve our own problems. Coming directly from the new fallen nature of our need to overcome hardship, using the gifts God gives us, then turning around worshiping that tech for solving our problems, which is just another name for worshiping self, like the original constant spiritual struggle of man, from the garden to the Tower of Babel to all the way to today. Obviously, it's one of the reasons why, at least rhetorically, even talking about Satanism, Luciferianism, technology, this perceived independence or lack of need for a creator, lack of need for a savior, because through this constant practice of solving our own problems through tech, we can very easily get put under the misconception that is generated within ourselves.
Yep. So I'm seeing some questions in the chat that are a little out of context to what we have here, so maybe I'll answer it some different times. But it's just so fascinating how everything we do, or everything we're seeing with the advancement of technology, is actually proving one of the oldest books out there. Genesis.
Yeah, I love it.
The problem with humanity, the source issue with mankind. So.
Well, I think this is a good good opportunity, Gans, to thank some of our producers today, because we cannot exist. We cannot even have these conversations without people putting value into the system. There are no corporations paying to have their name slapped on this thing. There is no mammon worshippers who get to sneak their way into your time, your consciousness, your ears through the surreptitious system, self-worshipping system of advertising, because we do not do that. We do not advertise. We do not take sponsorships, platform partnerships, none of that. We are strictly on the value for value model. Which is so beautiful for so many reasons. It does give the opportunity to you, dear listener, some might even consider it a responsibility, to put some value back in. And that value can take the form of your time, your talent, your treasure. But the fact of the matter is, if it weren't for you, our producers, we could not continue to do this. So we're going to thank a few producers. If you want to learn how to produce the show, again, with your time, your talent, your treasure, whatever it is God is calling you to use to participate in what he's doing on this earth, just head on over to canarycry.support.
Ooh, I was not prepared for this one. Can you imagine if we just went on that big old rant about all this stuff, and then it breaks into like some contraception
Get your kid an HPV vaccine. Get your kid on contraception. It's time.
I mean, it happens too often with some of the bigger shows who have advertisements that they don't necessarily control.
I showed you. I sent you that recording of that crazy vaccine advertisement right after this like red pill show. I talked about it on Thursday. I told the story on Thursday, but it was just so insane. It's and really illustrates the problem, which with something that seems innocent and seems necessary for people to continue doing the work that they need to do, is get advertisers, get as many eyeballs, tickle as many ears as possible so that they can sell those ears to advertisers and corporations. And we're so used to this now, we don't even really blame people. And I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus for doing advertisements, but for us, it does not make sense. And, God has called us to doing it this way. And if he wants us to continue, we're going to continue. But it only works if y'all out there participate. So go to canarycry.support, support the show in whatever way you want. We're going to thank some producers, because that's what you are when you produce the show. Starting with some executive producers. Like I said earlier, I think I put it in the email too. I was listening to No Agenda yesterday, the Sunday show, and we now have a 1-for-1 exact correlation, calling it the value for value index. You can tell exactly what's going on in the world, how people are feeling based on how they voluntarily support their value for value shows. And, No Agenda, they do Thursdays and Sundays, which are, we have not days that we do it. So when I listen to No Agenda, I hear their producer segment. I know exactly how our producer segment's going to go. And I'll just say yesterday, they were very sad about their producer segment. However, we do have some producers coming in. We want to thank them, especially on days like this, starting with our executive producers. Now, when you do go and produce the show financially, just know if you come in for $100 or more for any individual episode like this, that makes you an executive producer. So we thank you first and most gratefully. So I want to start with CageRattlerCoffee.com.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Cage Rattler Coffee.
I was not
Of
ready
course,
for that one.
the deadline has passed now, but Cage Rattler Coffee was running this very cool thing where with every bag of coffee, they were sending some hard money, some gold back, some physical precious metals with every bag of coffee. And apparently people are into that idea. Cage Rattler Coffee, they produce the show value for value every episode. We're very grateful for that. But they've now come in as an executive producer 2 episodes in a row. Nice round number coming from Cage Rattler Coffee, but a good opportunity to remind everybody to go to CageRattlerCoffee.com. This is a Canarian who wanted to find a creative way to support the show.
Sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Play that.
Cage Rattler Coffee, where value for value never tasted so good.
That's right. They wanted to produce the show value for value. They wanted to get creative with it. There was talks about how exactly we can stay, true to the value for value model. But the fun part is when you're going to buy the coffee anyways, you got to drink the coffee. It's just, you don't feel good about it, but you keep sending your money to the big evil coffee corporations that have all the nasty chemicals. It's moldy coffee. You don't know where it comes from. It's the corporation themselves support all these things that go against everything you believe in. So if you're going to get the coffee, go to CageRattlerCoffee.com. It's the best coffee you're going to have. Everybody says so. It's single origin. It's GMO free. It's organic. It's roasted in super small batches by a Canarian and packaged and sent to you straight to your doorstep. And of course, Cage Rattler Coffee supports the show value for value. And you can get your Nephilim Hunter dark roast. You can get your Emu Wrangler medium roast. Now, in the recent week or weeks, they were running the special where they're sending some precious metal with every bag. As far as I know right now, that special ended last night, but I will get the details. We'll see if they're going to keep doing it or do the special again, because it's all very competitively priced. And the difference is, you get way better coffee. Gons and I drink it every day. And I can tell you that. I promise you, it made me a coffee snob. But you're stacking gold. I mean, I just don't understand why nobody else is doing this. So God bless you, Cage Rattler Coffee. Everybody go to CageRattlerCoffee.com. And thank you for executive producing the show.
Can Cage Rattler Coffee become a knight or a name?
Good question.
Roundtable, Cage Rattler.
That's a great question. We'll have to bring it to the council. I see why not would be possible because it's not a person, but it also is a person. Corporations are people.
Mm-hmm.
Just kidding. They're not a corporation. I don't know anything about it. Okay. Thank you, Cage Rattler Coffee.
Yeah,
everybody go to CageRattlerCoffee.com for all the reasons. There's so many reasons. Plus, not only do they support the show, but you'll be supporting a Canarian just like you, somebody who's on the level, someone who's been supporting the show for a long time, been listening to the show for a long time. And if we're not supporting each other, then we're missing out on a huge opportunity for what God is calling us to do. All right. We had one other executive producer. I bet you could guess who it is. It is executive producer, Sir LX Protocol, V2 Baron of the Brian Protocol. That's right. He comes in again for $100 and 33 cents.
Illuminatus!
He's on a 491 episode streak and a 145 episode executive producer streak.
Man,
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you for that. That is insane.
You know, it's a short list today, so I'm going to thank the rest of our producers here. These producers came in under the executive producer amount, but we're still very grateful. Starting with producer Rebecca T.
Rebecca T. She's back. Thank you.
She's back, and she comes in with 6543, 6543.
Ah, yes, backwards, coming down.
She's doing it. She does it every time. It's incredible, and she's on a 28 episode streak.
Yeah, she's on a streak.
She's beyond the firmament now, you know? It's a whole different ball game.
Next up is 33. She's going to be a Lizard Master shill soon. Next up, we got producer Julie S. is back. Julie S. For a nice round number. Now, remember, folks, when you produce the show in any amount, if you come in for a nice round number on the 5 or the 10, that's you telling us you'd prefer we do not disclose the amount on the air, and we like to honor that. If you don't mind us disclosing the amount, you do like Rebecca T. Have some fun with the number. 6543, count down, put 33 cents on there, 1111, you know, some funky number like that. We'd love to read it. But thank you very much, Julius.
Yep, thank you.
We got Jacqueline H comes in and signs up for the supply drop for 3333.
Hey.
Illuminatus. She made it in. She made it under the deadline. She's going to get her second quarter supply drop with the gold backs in it. And of course, a bunch of other cool stuff. If you don't know, go to canarycrysupplydrop.com. If it weren't for all of our monthly producers, we would not be able to do this. But the supply drop is very special because of the very generous support of 3333 every month, we're able to send a big old package filled with custom Canary Cry gear. Sometimes it's mugs. There's always stickers in there. Sometimes there's gold. Sometimes there's apparel. Gonza's prayer hat went out. The Canary Cry calendar. It's just an endless treasure trove of cool stuff that people won't stop raving about. And lets people in the world go, what is that? What is your weird mug? What is it? I want to know about the show.
I want to bring back the legends of the Canarium, because the idea has inspired others, Basil, and it seems to
be. Bring it back. I know this always happens for us. You know, they took the calendar. Other shows are doing their calendar now. I started Legends of the Canarium, which is like our Canary Cry trading card game. We went on a little break for a few quarters here, but we'll get back into it. For those who, like Pokemon cards or something, we do our own Pokemon card, but it's Canary Cry card. It's a good time. We'll get back to it. That was maybe the most highly intensive creative work that went into the, at least for me personally, that went into the supply drop. So it was hard to sustain, but I'm down to keep going. If people sign up for the supply drop, I will continue to make your Canary Cry Pokemon cards. Send them to you.
Yep.
Thank you, Jacqueline H. Anybody else, go to canarycrysupplydrop.com to sign up.
All right.
Thank you to producer Adam Y. Adam Y came in for a nice round number plus fees. Thank you, Adam Y. And sent a note that said, thank you for your work. Thank you for your work, Adam.
Thank you, Adam Y.
Last but not least, I was very happy to see this producer on the list. We want to thank producer Sir Darren, Night of the Hungry Panda. Wait.
Hey, it's Sir Darren. He's back.
Sir Darren in the house. Thank you very much, Sir Darren, Night of the Hungry Panda, supporting the show for a pocket full of sevens plus fees, 777 plus fees. And he sent a little note here that says, the people who survived the sword found grace in the wilderness. This was Jeremiah 31:2, which was not a scripture that I was immediately available in my memory banks. So before the show, Guns, you and I got to jump over there to Jeremiah chapter 31, which was I think this is a very relevant scripture for anybody out there. At that time, declares the Lord, I will be the God of all the families of Israel, and they will be my people. This is what the Lord says. The people who survived the sword found favor in the wilderness. When Israel went to find rest, the Lord appeared to us in the past, saying, I have loved you with an everlasting love. Therefore, I have drawn you with loving devotion, and it goes on. And it's the prophet of God talking about, when you give yourself to God, when you follow God, it does not mean that peril will not befall you. But when peril does befall you, God is there to bring you into his next promise for you, which can be very difficult in real time to remember. And it doesn't make suffering any more fun, but it is a promise that we have as believers that even when everything seems to be going wrong, whatever new place God is bringing us is going to be where he next sustains us and blesses us and cares for us to bring us into the next thing he wants for us. So very encouraging. Thank you very much, Sir Darren, out of the Hungry Panda.
Thank you, Sir Darren. Appreciate you. Good to see you back.
We had some people come in under the $7.77 mark. We'll thank them on Wednesday because they are keeping big, long streaks going. We did not have any art. It's been a slow couple of years for art. And just remember, folks, look, the influence of No Agenda on me is making me a little bit more open to the idea of people prompting art, AI art. It's been a few years. We had to figure out how to really
manage that. Yeah.
How to manage that. But the world is such that AI art is just a part of the world we live in. It's an opportunity for a lot of people without artistic skills to express themselves with the help of technology. And so if you are an artist or a musician, if you want to make some graphic art for us, get the kids to sit down, draw with some crayon. If you're a musician, you want to make some jingles or a song about the show. And or if you got a fun idea, you want to make something with AI to help us out, you can go to canarycry.art and upload it there. And we'd love to feature it on the show.
Did we just allow AI art to persist?
We had gone soft. We have been progressively going softer on AI art, but the fact is that the real artists, the artists, that used to make stuff for us all the time, I think it's just a different world for artists. I think they're kind of emotionally beaten up.
Maybe
for artists.
Maybe something we can do is take a page out of Sir Darren's. The way Sir Darren operated, which is he, has his own social media. He can post it on his social media and then share that link with us. And that way we can get people to get their accounts.
I'm open to that.
Yeah.
I'm open to that. And not to mention, Guns, that we need to explicitly say that AI art is okay because we're not trying to hide it. But we do use AI art for our.
Oh, excuse me. I worked meticulously for several seconds.
Gons does work hard. He does work hard on the AI to make the thumbnail.
Several seconds of thought went into art like the one for this episode, Basil.
Don't worry. The thing has always, the main thing has always been, it's just an opportunity for people to be a part of the show, right? More than anything. Right. Yeah. Okay. It's just be a part of the show. Okay. All right. There's that. Let me see here. I just got
embroiders, people that do like real handcrafted art. That is still the preferred. I mean, I've always said that as AI and 3D printing and all this stuff becomes much more pervasive, people with real skills to knit or crochet or mold things or draw, whatever,
you're gonna be
those people will become, you're going to be highly valued by a certain segment of the population. So do not quit the hand-drawn handmade stuff.
We had one more financial producer come in just now, so I want to give them credit here. It came in right now. And this is who's this? Producer Denise S.
Denise S.
Thank you very much.
Denise S.
I don't recall this name. Excuse me, Denise, if you've produced before, but a good reminder for everybody out there. If it's your first time producing the show in any way, let us know it's your first time and we'll demooch you. That's very fun.
That's right. Yeah.
And you might even get a free supply drop if you get demooched. But so Denise S comes in for $26.25. 2625.
Ooh, 2625. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Lovely. All right. I think that's it for those producers.
Okay.
Goodness gracious, Guns. We have really had a fun time popping off today.
Two articles.
I know. I kind of like it, though. I don't know. Maybe some people
I
don't
do
like
too.
it, but it's just where we've been lately.
Yeah.
What in the world are we going to do with these remaining articles? It's 4:00. What is your timing looking like?
I can go a little bit longer here. Let's
tough,
do
right?
this Vox one. I think we
Let's
can
do Vox, and we can follow up. Give the do the Peter Thiel thing for a second. I'll do the Vox one real quick. I have highlights and stuff, but this was very interesting. This is tough. We've been wanting to do this article for a couple times now, but this is coming from Vox. Again, another one of the top shelf culture crafters, right? Not necessarily news, still very influential, but just technically bankrupt, but somehow they keep going. It's very important to the culture.
Hey, technically, we're bankrupt. Well, no, maybe not technically. Theoretically, we are bankrupt too here at Canary Cry. But yeah, it's a difficult life. Podcasting,
there's a lot of ways
making content.
Okay. So the headline here is somehow the Antichrist returned.
It's Latin for many.
Tick.
They'll suck your blood.
Politics. It's got to be biblical.
Let me give you the intro here, and then we'll hit the finer points because this is crazy. In case you didn't notice, the Antichrist is back. Thank you, Vox. In case you hadn't noticed, the Antichrist is back. All right, forgive the hyperbole. This biblical agent of Satan hasn't actually returned to lead a rebellion against God where Christ's second coming. But in the year of our Lord, 2026, a curious surge in chatter about this herald of the apocalypse seems to be underway. So the Antichrist talk has reached such a fever pitch that Vox is forced to talk about it. A number of far-right dissidents, from Marjorie Taylor Greene to Nick Fuentes, are asking questions about whether President Donald Trump is more than he seems. Quote, could this be the Antichrist? Tucker Carlson asked on his podcast. Quote, well, who knows? It didn't help when Trump posted an AI slop image of himself as the Messiah, which he later claimed was meant to be a doctor. Quote, not saying Trump is the Antichrist, conservative Rod Dreher told the Wall Street Journal, quote, but he's radiating the spirit of Antichrist, no question. So interesting, guys. So interesting.
So many thoughts.
So
interesting.
Such a long history with us and talking about this, and now it's just on Vox. The Antichrist talk is also taking off in the politics adjacent tech world in a different context, where Palantir founder and conservative tech billionaire Peter Thiel has been leading a series of closed-door lectures on the Antichrist and garnering the disapproving attention of the Vatican. In a wild coincidence, his hypothetical Antichrist appears to be anti-tech people who annoy him.
Special thanks to our sponsor, PALANTIR.
Artificial intelligence. Surveillance state.
I love how the gay man Peter Thiel is described as conservative tech billionaire by Vox here. It's the most the end times have saturated our political culture since the aughts. They're talking about the 20-aughts, when the new millennium brought an explosion of renewed interest spurred on by the apocalyptic Left Behind novels and related Christian media depicting a realistic modern Antichrist. Later on, former President Barack Obama became a fixation of related theories on the religious right, depicting him as the Antichrist. Remember those days, Guns? Simpler times when Obama...
There's still some around. I still see it in the comments every once in a while. You're forgetting about Obama. Hold on to the Obama Antichrist.
Scholars and experts on biblical writing and apocalyptic history say there's a long history of perceived Antichrist figures popping up in moments of collective crisis or despair in the Western world. And there are certain traits that tend to supercharge these narratives. The presence of war, especially in the Middle East, economic or public health crises, political or societal instability, and the appearance of an unusually charismatic leader. Needless to say, we were probably due for a revival.
I love how they say the revival in their context is Antichrist fervor.
Yep.
You know,
And
not church revival of like, you know, people coming to Christ, although
yeah,
there's some of
well,
that
that's
going
what
on
I mean.
too.
Not the actual kind of revival that we've seen in culture
Kind of
lately
revival,
of a
yeah,
lot
yeah.
of people coming at least to Christianity, not to put any judgment on their actual salvation. But I mean, we have noted this since 2023, this weird resurgence, perhaps a revival, but their revival is talk about the Antichrist. Yet, just like in past periods of panic and perturbation over the centuries, there's a lot of uncertainty in these discussions over who or what the Antichrist is, when this figure is to return, or even if this biblical character is supposed to be the real thing. Interesting how they say when this figure, the Antichrist, is to return. Okay, these are very theological subtleties that we've been having to navigate for a very long time. And Vox just comes waltzing in, throwing this. Okay. So it's a good time to ask, where did the idea of the Antichrist come from in the first place? How does it tend to manifest in politics? And what is it about our current moment that's driving such renewed interest in the concept? All right, I'm going to be skipping a lot, even though it's all very interesting to me and to you, Gons. I don't want to get people bogged down, but just let's get just a little taste of this. It says the biblical roots of the Antichrist. Okay, let's get a little
Vox giving us the biblical roots of the Antichrist. Let's see.
Antichrist theology from Vox. It's probably helpful to start off with actually defining what the Antichrist is. All right, and what the signs are that believers in his arrival are looking for. Definitions vary across various Christian denominations and traditions, but they are rooted in the interpretations of a relatively small number of biblical passages that either use this term explicitly or get linked to the same figure. A strangely sort of nuanced start for Vox. Surprisingly, I mean, even more nuanced than like actual Christian.
Oh, way more.
Right? Way more nuanced and interesting, and I think correct than a ton of the ex-Antichrist people.
Yeah. I wonder if the AI, not the AI, but just AI in general has helped people like Vox to be a little bit more reflective on accurately, not because AI is so accurate. That's not what I'm saying, but at least we are feeding the
maybe they're searching out some more subtle Antichrist talkers like yours truly. I don't know. Who knows? Surprisingly, the term Antichrist only appears 5 times in the New Testament. These explicit mentions in the letters of the disciple John refer to deceivers who come to confuse Christians by denying Jesus Christ's divinity, preaching other heresies. Scripture suggests that there can be and have been multiple Antichrists whose aim is to derail the faithful from achieving salvation. Okay, pretty good start. Whether this is a symbolic or literal figure depends on Christian traditions and how close you think these passages to references to other beasts and deceivers written about in other parts of the New Testament. For example, the Apostle Paul writes of a man of lawlessness. This is one we point out a lot in his second letter to the Thessalonians, who, quote, will oppose and will exalt himself over everything that is called God or is worshipped, so that he sets himself up in God's temple, proclaiming himself to be God. When you have a horror movie, apocalyptic visions from the book of Revelation about the chaotic period before the second coming of Christ, which includes, I love they call it a horror movie, like the Left Behind series is a horror series. Which includes references to a 7-headed, quote, beast coming out of the sea, who bears a fatal wound, quote, but the fatal wound had been healed. This beast is empowered by a dragon, understood to be Satan, and the people of the world stand in awe and worship the beast, asking, quote, who is like the beast? Who can wage war against it? Catholics and mainline Protestants have less literal interpretations of the passage. Okay, then they explain some of the Catholic and mainline things. Now, a quick mention under this subheadline, The Long History of the Antichrist in the Western Imagination. Because of the detail and color of these symbols and characters in the Bible, it has been enticing for believers and readers to draw firm connections between the text and the real world. Quote, they read the Bible like it's a secret code book, and that if they can unlock the code, then they can understand what's going to happen in the end times. Matthew A. Sutton, a historian of American apocalypticism at Washington State University, told me, quote, it's a very modern way to read the Bible compared to what would have seen through much of church history. Quote, so wars, political changes, religious evolutions, and the rise and fall of empires, these sorts of political and religious events can create that moment. Then they go through a couple examples of recent and not so recent periods where this, I guess, scholar of apocalyptic history says that, you know, society went through this Antichrist kind of thing. I'm going to kind of skip over them.
Can I just, if
Please
people who know me know my pet peeve, okay? My pet peeve is when people talk about, especially the book of Revelation. It's a singular revelation of Jesus Christ. That's what it says right at the beginning there. People always say book of Revelations, plural. It's almost like a dead giveaway that they don't know what they're talking about when they do that.
Yeah.
Or maybe at least, you know, they haven't really looked at, I don't know, maybe they're new to it or something. I don't know. But throughout this article, it's book of Revelations, plural.
Yep.
It's driving me crazy.
Yeah. I mean, they definitely...
Come on, Vox. It's almost like they wrote this knowing that we're going to read it to trigger you for certain things, trigger me for certain things. It's like, man, what's going on here? Why Revelation, book of Revelations? What is it linking to? What is oh, it's linked to Bible Gateway. So good job, Vox, linking to Bible Gateway.
Couple of things here. What makes modern iterations of the Antichrist different? They spend some time and they say people always think the Pope is the Antichrist. People thought Martin Luther was the Antichrist. People, you know,
really. Oh, maybe the Catholic Church said that.
Yeah,
he called them out as the Antichrist.
That is interesting, yeah, because they talk about how the Catholic Church sees it more allegorically, but then calling Martin Luther the
Martin Luther's like, hey, Roman Catholic Church, you're the beast, and the Pope is the Antichrist, and they're like, no, you're the Antichrist. Oh, history! Aren't we so lucky to have all of?
Well, and this is, I mean, a good point. Okay, so they're making a point to say, hey, humanity goes through these cycles of trying to point out the Antichrist or a Antichrist. You know, they give space to say, oh, maybe they thought Martin Luther was an Antichrist, not the. This is obviously a big part of the subtlety. Yeah. What makes modern iterations of the Antichrist different? So how did these historical waves of Antichrist panic lead us to Donald Trump and Peter Thiel? Now they make a long case about how this idea of looking at the news and world events to try to find the Antichrist is very modern, right? And on one hand, they're not necessarily wrong, because it's not like the news really existed, in the
same way,
way on sort of a broad thing. So more people having access to world events has led to more people being interested in the Antichrist there. Now, they do have this little section just to give a nod to how deep they went. It says, in the post-war period, the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948 was another crucial development in today's Antichrist theology. Many of the apocalyptic biblical stories center on the Holy Land, the return of the Jewish people to it, and a period of tribulation for them. There, this Antichrist figure will allow the Jewish people to rebuild a temple, then betray them, demand worship, and assemble global armies under his command for a final battle in the Valley of Armageddon, which historically is located in the Jezreel Valley in northern Israel. So they even get the geographical Armageddon connection. You know, they include it in there. Okay. You know, we've been documenting these mainstream injections of end times eschatology, of Antichrist theology. And we comment recently where it used to be like these crazy Christians think this crazy thing. Now they're actually at least trying to include some of the real study behind it, or at least some of the real history. But the kicker on this article is really very interesting. One more paragraph about the Israel thing. Now, these narratives have become central to dispensationalist evangelical theology. Israel's unity and existence must be preserved in order for these phases to take shape and for the eventual rapture to occur. Consequently, quote, anything that involves Israel or the Middle East is going to trigger speculation of end times prophecies, Sutton said, especially when there's instability or war in the region. These literal biblical interpretations also suggest a period of global domination by the Antichrist. Governments submit to this figure and turn over their armies to him. Quote, part of what has driven concerns about the Antichrist is the idea that they are going to sacrifice American sovereignty through a global organization, Sutton said. Quote, and so this is why religious conservatives are so suspicious of groups like NATO and especially the United Nations, because they believe ultimately we're moving towards one world government, and it's the Antichrist who's going to prevail over that one world. Not totally wrong. I mean, okay, they're taking a look.
It just took him 20 years to,
took them a long
put
time,
it into words
right?
on
Took
a Vox article. But yeah.
And would they have done it if it weren't for you and I, Gons? Who knows? There's no way of knowing. Then it's funny, they name a few Antichrist possibilities that I some of them I remember, some of them I don't. They mentioned Saddam Hussein faced Antichrist allegations during the Gulf War. Maybe I was too young for that one. They mentioned Hillary Clinton was called the Antichrist, Barack Obama. I think they even mentioned Richard Nixon in here at some point. John McCain, apparently. This is, which brings us to 2026. Okay, let's get to the point. The latest panics fit neatly into these traditions. Peter Thiel's Antichrist lectures seem to boil down to a fear over technological stagnation and growing opposition to artificial intelligence. So one of the weird things, one of the little tricks that I feel they're using here is that they're including Peter Thiel as like a legitimate Antichrist researcher, right? Like they're seeing him as an actual influence.
They're not seeing him as the Antichrist?
Well, we'll get to that. But they're reporting him as like a legit Antichrist researcher, right? He warns that efforts to regulate AI in the name of fighting some future existential risk could bring about the conditions for a central power to seize global authoritarian control, the Antichrist. Then they just kind of leave it there. They give Peter Thiel
this Sutton guy, this guy at a university that studies apocalyptic literature, and Peter Thiel is our source and authority for this type of information.
I think that might be the little trick here. I don't know exactly what direction or why, but treating Peter Thiel as sort of an influential, legit Antichrist researcher. Going down just a paragraph. The recent Trump panic. Okay, here we go. They started out talking about people think Trump is the Antichrist, not just people. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Nick Fuentes, Tucker Carlson, some of the biggest names we've been following with this. That really trip us out when we try to understand why or what might be going on. The recent Trump panic, however, is a bit of an inversion. Okay? They just spent all this time explaining who the Antichrist might be and why people might think he is, talking about Peter Thiel as a legit guy, but calling Trump the Antichrist is an inversion. Interesting. It's almost like that's exactly what the Antichrist would look like, but okay. The recent Trump panic, however, is a bit of an inversion. Trump is typically championed by the same right-wing religious figures who are most attuned to literal interpretations of the Antichrist in the end times. It's surprising that figures like Carlson and Fuentes would break the seal on this front. I thought that was interesting language.
They knew what they were doing there. Yeah.
But historically speaking, Trump also fits the mold of prior Antichrist hunts. He is surely a charismatic leader. He's launched civilizational wars in the Middle East. He's survived assassination attempts, mimicking the fatal but healed wound of the beast of Revelation. He's blasphemed and used the trappings of religion to advance his personal brand. But to focus on any one person or movement as Antichrist is to miss the broader point. Robert Fuller, religious studies professor at Bradley University, told me the concept applied politically risks taking an already polarized time and raising the stakes of elections and policy debates even further. Quote, this image sustains a crisis mentality, Fuller said. Quote, it summons out hatred and resentment that can fuel long-term grudges and makes compromise unthinkable, since no one compromises with the devil. This is exactly what we just made the point about, and we've made this point many times in the past, because Trump, to many people, represents the same ultimate evil as Hitler, from the left, makes it impossible to even consider compromising at all, because he is ultimate evil for the left. Now, calling Trump the Antichrist makes him the ultimate evil for the right. If someone legitimately considers him to be the Antichrist, you don't compromise with the Antichrist. And that's where we're seeing Tucker, Nick Fuentes, Candace Owens, Marjorie Taylor Greene, right? So on either side, you've got this, I guess, targeting or casting as the ultimate evil. And so you have Vox pointing this out and quoting this guy saying, hey, this is dangerous. Be careful, because then you can't compromise with Trump. Almost as if they're trying to convince the reader that they should try compromising with Trump, to not see him as the Antichrist. It goes on. It makes compromise unthinkable, since no one compromises with the devil. It justifies hatred and violence, recasting these traits as virtues, much like we've seen with the left over the past 10 years, justifying and praising violence and murder as virtues because of the casting of Trump as the ultimate evil. In that vein, it's inevitable that Antichrist narratives persist. Such a flexible idea can adapt regardless of century. Is likely we'll see many recurring returns of the Antichrist, at least until the world actually does end. So the trip for me, not only I'm always tripping out, people might be tired of hearing about it, but I think you're missing a big meta-cultural picture to overlook the specificity, the subtlety, at least the attempt at an honest look at Antichrist theology from Vox, of all people. But to end the entire thing defending Trump, saying, hey, look, we're Vox. We know we've called him Hitler 1,000 times. We know we've praised. We've called people to assassinate the guy, right?
Yeah,
it's not just these things, but it's also Vox pulling a full 180 to come out and say, hey, don't be crazy like Tucker and Nick Fuentes. Don't think of Trump as the Antichrist, okay? If you think he's the Antichrist, here's a bunch of reasons why he's not the Antichrist. And you should try to work with him. It's just mind-blowing, space-melting. If you have a memory longer than a goldfish, if this presentation is not absolutely like laying you out on your back, then you're not paying attention.
Well, you had made a good point before, because I think in conversation leading up to last episode, we didn't even get to this article, but there's this notion that, Vox is sitting there going, Trump is Hitler, Trump is Hitler, Trump is Hitler. And as soon as some highly influential people on the right said, Trump is the Antichrist, they're like, Well, no,
No.
why are you? No,
Don't be
he's not.
crazy.
Don't be crazy. So it's like, and you made the point that to the right, the what would you say? Hitler is to the left, as Antichrist is to the right. Is that something along the lines of what you said?
Yeah, if you're on the left, you call somebody Hitler, you're saying he's the ultimate evil.
That's like the ultimate
If you're on
evil,
the right, and you call somebody the Antichrist, he's the ultimate evil. So it's it's rhetorically, take away from the sort of
the actual biblical
literal usefulness of the Bible, right? But just rhetorically in the media, in culture, calling somebody Hitler or calling somebody the Antichrist, depending on which side you're on, is basically the same strategy. It's basically, you're saying the same thing. You're saying this guy is the ultimate evil, right? And Vox comes out and says, yeah, Trump's the ultimate evil. He's the ultimate evil. He's the ultimate evil.
They're doing it for 10 plus years.
Right. And then Tucker comes out and says, hey, Trump's the ultimate evil. And Vox is like, whoa, slow down, everybody. This is not really a
you can see the pendulum
productive way politically.
You can see how we're going to crash. We're going one way, you overcorrect the other way. I mean, the car's going to flip over, folks.
And to put so much painstaking research and painstaking nuance to do a pretty good job presenting Antichrist theology to a normie crowd, strictly to defend Trump, is so bizarre.
Right. To defend Trump in like the more neutral sense too, not as like a political extreme example of somebody that's caricatured into ultimate evil type thing, which is what they were doing forever. And just to point out, there's somebody in the chat on X here, Catherine, said that it's not Trump, he's not loved by all. And this is, I hear that a lot. I hear like one thing, one aspect that either proves or disproves an individual could be or couldn't, wouldn't be the Antichrist. And this is exactly why I'm doing the whole study on prophecy without panic, because I think that type of take it's like one box to check off on a list of many, many things to check off. And
it's the same question that got us not invited to any more conferences back in the day.
Yeah, it's true.
Our question was, okay, if we're looking for the mark of the beast, says hand, says forehand, but what if a device, a mark came out that checked all the boxes on the mark of the beast, but it was on your butt, right? It wasn't on your forehead.
It's not on your forehead.
What if it fit every single thing, but it was on your butt cheek, right? Is that the mark of the beast? How do we think about that? And that's what got people to stand up and walk out of the conference call.
I remember that. I remember the utter shock in the room.
They weren't ready for us, guys.
They were not ready.
They were not.
Yeah. I think back to that day too. It was very dark in that room, and the only thing that caused light into that room was people walking out
opening and it was one of those
our own conference too, our own put together little conference, and
it was the door with
the Lord for
things you would hear ka-chunk, and then you get blinded by the light of the door opening, and then it would slam shut again, bonk.
By the way,
10 seconds later,
nobody said the word but. Okay, what we had was a graphic of a very crude outline,
a clinical doctor's graphic. Okay, it was not lewd or anything. But anyways, this is kind of doing the same thing, right? When you say, okay, the guy fits 9 out of 10, but he's not loved by all. That's not me also defending Trump, right?
I'm not, just understand. Yes, we're not saying
we were some of the first people to entertain years and years and years ago to entertain the idea that, hey, Trump's starting to kind of, step into some of these descriptions. But, nobody cares.
I do. Yeah, nobody cares. I do wonder, just based on the ability of AI to sort of take the transcripts of a whole bunch of content and, spit out some kind of more cohesive summary of stuff out there. I did have a video on the Face Like the Sun YouTube channel called "Is Donald Trump the Antichrist?" And it was a 2-hour video
years ago.
basically talking about not Trump being the Antichrist, but what the Bible says the Antichrist or man of sin would do, and the types of things that we should expect for this man of sin or the son of perdition to do based on the scriptures. And without it was a pretty popular video, but I do recall the comments flooding in, 5 minutes after I published the video. And this is like 2016 or 2017 or something. We don't
Meaning
have
nobody actually watched it.
Nobody watched it. People were spitting all kinds of emotional thoughts and responding. He can't be no, there's no way, because blah, 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 blah. There was a lot of, no, Obama's the Antichrist type of talk back then. But nobody watched the video. So I remember replying to a bunch of them at the time thinking like, okay, come on, can you watch 10 minutes into the video before you start commenting on? But no, I mean, that was writing on the wall. TikTok saw that and they're like, we know what to do. We know how to get the attention of the generation.
Our problem is that we can't fit all this into 30 seconds on TikTok.
I know it's mind-boggling to us where it's like, hey, yeah, you just got to make a 30-second video and you'll go viral. And it's like 30 seconds. We can't even get through. We can't do anything in 30 seconds. What do you
make a lot more money?
The
shorter you can make your content, the more money that you make.
I know, but it's just it's the perfect trap too, because what you can say in 30 seconds, there's no way you can distill so much into 30 seconds. You can provide a very chopped up, surface level version of something. But that's what people eat up nowadays, and it's kind of unfortunate. But that's just the reality of the situation. So
now, because it was mentioned in the Vox Antichrist article, they talked about Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel's come up multiple times now, from the Great Depopulation to the Mind Children to the Antichrist return. Peter Thiel's definitely on the list of some people's, Antichrist cast members,
because he's doing lectures about how to prevent the Antichrist with the progression of AI, but also
got to become the Antichrist to stop the Antichrist. It's a very Silicon Valley strategy.
It is very much. Yeah. His whole thesis, as far as I understand, is, hey, we want to prevent Antichrist, but we also don't want to accidentally create the war of Armageddon in the process of stopping the Antichrist. So give us all your money. We're going to build AI that will prevent.
So we need more data centers.
We need more data. And just real quick, some Peter Thiel news broke this weekend. The UK, or the independent.co.uk, had the headline, "The $687 million irony of Peter Thiel's reported plan to ditch the US for Argentina." So there he goes. Peter Thiel, the tech billionaire and influential right-wing donor, is man, none of them, they all dropped the whole gay thing, huh? Like, it just doesn't fit their thing.
Right,
like, well, you're not gay enough for us anymore.
Yeah, I like
for gay month. June is gay month, So
right-wing donor is probably the most, I would say, accurate way to describe it, but that's okay. That's neither here nor there.
Even that is, there's some, yeah.
He's a donor to the right wing. He's not necessarily a donor who is right wing. Anyway.
Yeah, right, exactly. Okay, is reportedly looking for an exit plan to escape America again, and his timing couldn't be stranger, given that he's never had more sway in Washington nor more financial incentives to stay stateside. Nonetheless, Thiel, who previously obtained New Zealand citizenship and reportedly pursued a Maltese passport, now has his sights set on Argentina. In the last 2 months, the Palantir and PayPal co-founder reportedly bought a $12 million mansion in an exclusive district in Buenos Aires, temporarily relocated his family and children to the country, and met with leaders, including Argentinian President Javier Milei, as the country reportedly mulls offering Thiel citizenship. And we don't have to go into all the details here, but a few things to point out. Argentina, gateway to Antarctica, so maybe there's something there. Maybe he's just sort of doing his conquest of data centers. Yeah, I am surprised. Data centers require heat, and you want colder climates. It offers a little bit more, I don't know, especially as we go quantum. A lot of the stuff gets really hot. So, forget global warming. We need colder climates to do that. Secondly, some people pointed out, and I couldn't help myself but to make a meme, there's a pattern, Basil,
Mhm.
of some people going to Argentina, namely, if you are to believe some of the rumors, after Hitler had died, blown
Ultimate
off,
evil.
the ultimate evil had blown off his own face. Which, by the way, mortal head wound. You know, we've interviewed people who thought Hitler was the Antichrist and that he's going to pop up back to life after his mortal head wound when he allegedly committed suicide. Escaped to Argentina after World War II. And if you ask the Argentinian locals, they all kind of agree that, yeah, Hitler was around. Yeah, we saw him. You know, we have the whole group of people that are descended from Hitler down there. So there's that. But also, yeah, so Peter Thiel may be following the footprints of the great Hitler to go to Argentina after he unleashed the tech beast in the United States.
They kind of
which
look
could be
similar a
akin
little
to. I was thinking that.
They have a similar
Just-
nose.
Yeah, you know, there's a lot more closer sort of facial features than you'd first think. You know, their ears are very similar. Their
Yeah,
nose, and maybe it's just the
jawline,
picture. Yeah, there's
nose.
like, it's weird because they don't look alike. Just conceptually, they don't look anything alike. But yeah, I got this side by side together, and I was actually appalled at how closely they look alike. I
So-
don't know if there's anything there, but
Independent.co.uk and others are pointing out that
Yes.
it's an odd time for Thiel to be running to Argentina because he seems to be
Yeah.
at the height of his power. He and the PayPal mafia seem to be more influential than ever. They got a bunch of their guys in the White House. They funded the
they're like
government.
fully embedded into the military industrial complex.
They have a bunch of government contracts. You know, by all metrics, they're kind of running the show, right? He's got everything he could possibly want. He's got all the money in the world. He's got all the power in the world. So it's kind of weird. What does he know? What does he see on the back end? What does he see coming down the line that he needs to, at least prepare a getaway vehicle down to Argentina?
They're gonna drop the nukes. They're gonna drop the nukes in the U.S. That's what Alex. says.
And they mention we're seeing this kind of interesting rise in New York and California with Gavin and Mamdani and these various places. Although you could make the opposite case as well, that California is looking at the billionaire tax. New York is, getting all communist. There's a lot of as much, I guess, progress you could say the right is making. The left is also making some very specific progress in communism and socialism. So something that we don't know, that we don't see, or maybe we do, has Peter Thiel going like, okay, I'm out of here. Peace out. I'm the richest, most powerful man in the country. I'm out of here. Peace. And they also bring up his Antichrist speeches, right? They're like, this guy, he thinks something's going on. He's getting out of here. Which, is not wrong. It is strange, but he also has kind of getaway plans to New Zealand, as they mentioned, Maltese. I don't know what it is.
Maltese.
It might just be a thing that billionaires do. There's that new fun billionaire flight tracker, Apocalypse Flight Tracker, where they track 11,000 of the private jets. And when enough of the private jets leave the US at the same time, it can send you a little alert like, okay, apocalypse is coming. It could just
the billionaire indicator.
Yeah. Could be nothing, could be something, but as much, and if you listen to this show, this is not a surprise to you, but as much as there is an effort to make, I would say, probably the right side of the spectrum more confident in the future of the country, there are these little indicators to say, hey, everything might not be as it seems, or it could have nothing to do with politics and it's just literally is the end times. Who knows?
Yeah, one or the other. There were others saying that this is an opportunity to, again, not so much escape the United States, but expand its power in a more
Yeah. It's like a
in the
colonial
context,
thing.
like a colonialism type thing, but instead of conquistadors going into Mexico or something, it's tech billionaires going into other countries and making deals.
Because those countries, they want the billionaires to come in there, so they're gonna make concessions. It's a good opportunity for Millet and Thiel to start talking, and since obviously Thiel hooked up with Palantir, he probably has a bunch of blackmail on Millet. It could be
that's true.
Soft power expansion kind of thing. I would say that's maybe the best case scenario.
That's let's go America. He's misunderstood everybody. He's a patriot. He's doing it for the Americans. And also the concept of the network state that we often bring up.
Exactly.
Creating a network state where the United States will become a power as such that is not. I mean, we're already kind of that in terms of
matter.
It's beyond the national borders.
The techno rights version of no borders, where the borders technically exist, but they just don't mean anything.
Is Argentina part of that map? I don't think it is, but why not? Maybe in the 100 years they expanded the whole.
Oh, you're talking the technate. Well, I think the technate,
the technate too. That there's a part of it
different, but
those are different. Yeah, you're right. Those are different.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah. But anyway, it's just something to keep an eye on, and we'll find out. And when we do, it's probably too late. But hey, that's how it goes with a lot of these things. We say things and we look at things and we'll pay attention to them. And by the time most people, the fact that we're hearing it in the news means that it's already happened. And
there's at least an op version of it. There's at least the op is in play, whatever that.
Yeah, whatever the op is, it's well underway because we're hearing about it in the mainstream news outlets. So
okay, I think it's time for us to go, Guns. We went much later than we were expecting, and much later than I would say maybe the economics of today's show called for, but we're happy to do it. Here's where we are. Once we get in the chair, God's in charge. Thank you, everybody, and especially a big thank you to the producers. And I highly encourage, look, if you've gotten value today, if you've gotten value in previous episodes, even if you've just gotten value in Clubhouse, whatever it is, keep us in mind. Keep us in mind when the Lord sustains and blesses you, and just know that we can't do any of this without you. So consider producing the show with your time, your talent, your treasure. Just go over to canarycry.support. And I want to shout out some producers who help us out with their time, starting with the timestampers.
Oh, all right, we're going straight to the timestampers.
Wow.
It's hard work.
I believe it is, Jade Bouncerson who did the timestamps for episode 944. Appreciate you on that.
Thank you, Jade Bouncerson.
For people, I'm seeing somebody trying to find us on different platforms. Catherine, if you're watching on X, it's just through my account, the Face Like the Sun account. Basil's account also broadcasts it. We're also on Rumble and YouTube on a couple different channels on YouTube. So
we're everywhere.
We're being throttled, which no surprises. We get throttled all over the place.
Good luck finding us. I saw a bunch of other people commenting too that they got the text and then they went to search YouTube, and then YouTube wasn't pulling us up in the search results. This is how they do it.
It's been a thing.
They've done it forever. Even if you want to even if you subscribe, they're going to unsubscribe you. If you want to even search for us, they're not going to send you notifications. It's just a whole thing. So the best way to make sure you don't miss a show is to text our text message alert system.
Oh, yeah, that's a good way to do it.
It's very easy. Just text the word canary, just the word canary. Very simple. Just spell out the word canary, Canary, to the number 877-740-3226. Again, that's canary to 877-740-3226. That'll put you on the list, and you will start receiving messages from me before we start every show. I send out a text to over 1,000 people at this point when we're getting the show started with a link, and that's a great way to do it. Okay. Fun part is you can text us back at that number if you'd like, We cannot carry on a conversation. I cannot answer your questions via text. I cannot respond to your text, but I can see your text when you send it. So feel free to do that. A couple mentions here. 540 texted and says, Nero looks like Trump. What's up with that? There's something to look into, Guns. Nero apparently looks like Trump. 484 says, yay, we're all here. 6 oh, this is TDL Prez. We're gonna go ahead and why don't you hit the producers? You got the producers?
Oh yeah.
Producers, assemble!
TDL Press wanted to give a little praise report for the squatting cop situation. They've had a couple small victories, but the battle continues. So we're praying for TDL Press that the Lord does his thing in his real estate issue. Thank you, TDL Press. 40. Oh, this is Monica. Monica texted and says, I spent the morning listening to episode 67 of Canary Cry Radio with Dr. Hugo de Garis. It was wild hearing how accurate some of his predictions were. Everyone should go back and listen to that episode, and I need to buy his book. Thanks, you guys. Monica. Thank you, Monica. And yeah, if there's anybody new, you're listening to Canary Cry News Talk. We have another show called Canary Cry Radio. You can find it on your podcast players, where we have 10 to 15 years of interviews. A lot of the fringy people that you're seeing mainstreamed on the alternative podcast celebrities these days were our friends way back in the day. So you can get their early work and see how much of their work came true over the years, just like this show. Let's see here. 762 says, all praises to the Most High God, Jesus Christ. Thank you very much. 570 says, love you guys. 970 says, thank you for all you do. Lots of nice things. So thank you for all the nice words. And if you're not on there, text the word Canary to 877-740-3226. And of course, I want to thank just a few people who help us out with their time. Big shout out to Jam, who heads up the Telegram channel. Thank you to Adam42, who heads up the Discord channel. Shout out to everybody over at canarycry.community. And if you're not connected online in one or more of these communities, we got a Telegram, we got a Discord, we have a forum kind of off-brand social media network. That's very cool. No algos. Go to canarycry.party. You will see the invite links to the Telegram, the Discord, or you can always go to canarycry.community to join that one there. Thank you to Joe for your feedback. Thank you to Sir Clank for all the Sir Clanking he does for us. And of course, a big shout out to Sir Ike for keeping us alive in so many different ways. And a big old shout out to you, dear listener. Thank you. Go ahead, hit that like button. Don't forget, hit the share button. These are all very important, but more than everything, share the show. Share it with your friends, share it with your family. If there's something that touched you, something that affected you today, think of somebody in your life who might benefit from that. We know it's not a 30-second TikTok. We know it's a little bit tougher, but if you need, send them a timestamp or something to the important thing. We call that rattling cages, and all you got to do is walk right up to them, grab them by the cage, and then you shake it.
The end of the world occurred pretty much as we had predicted.
I want to shake things up, stir up some controversy, rattle a few cages. Hey, stop that! You'll never silence me. I'm the last angry man, a crusader for the little guy. Leave the bird alone. Never. Rattle a few cages. Rattle a few cages.
Human race will have every opportunity to improve.
And if they don't?
Ask Noah.
That's right. Just ask Noah. Guns, you got any last words?
Yeah, you know what? Trump does kind of look like Nero. Look at that.
Oh, yeah, look at that. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, pretty interesting. Huh.
I never imagined Nero being so portly.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he was on some coins and stuff as like Apollo. Right. I think it was like Apollo and like Savior, Lord and Savior and stuff.
Yeah. It's an interesting study on Roman coins and a lot of the ways people referred to Jesus too. It's like a very powerful, strong statement in a lot of different ways. All right, everybody. I think that's it. All right, everybody.
Yep.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Canary Cry News Talk. We'll be back on Wednesday. But until then, think outside the cage.
See you Wednesday. Tardigrade Day.
Do not come back, you Nazi psychopaths. Toilets! Feed him more.
Give me a break. This is not about freedom or personal choice.
But what if you're a grifter who needs to sell ads? Remember, reality is an illusion. The universe is a hologram. Buy gold. Bye!
Value for value. We take no money from corporations, commies, or cartels.
Bye. I'm out of here. Bye.
Canary Cry.